Good evening, everyone. Let's get underway in 30 seconds. Good evening, everybody. Let's call to order the meeting of the December 9, 2024 Finance Committee hearing. First order of business, I'd like to move to approve the minutes of the November 25, 2024 Finance Committee hearing.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? I'll say thank you to our council staff, Danielle and Devangi, for doing the bulk of the work here. And it's detailed and does a beautiful job in these minutes of creating a nice record for future deliberation, future analysis of our budget. So it's more than just a perfunctory, it's really a detailed record, and we appreciate that, so thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. So we continue our deliberations with the various directors. And top of the order tonight is actually not a director at all, but the leader of a independent branch of government known as the Lakewood Municipal Court. Our former council member, Tess Neff, is, of course, municipal court judge for some 3-4 years now? 3 years, okay. So welcome back, Judge Neff, and the floor is yours. We welcome your budget presentation. Maria, welcome. Judge, your microphone, I think, is off, so.
Okay, there we go. All right. So this, you will recall that the court never really had an organization chart, and so we implemented that. Really only one change to this organizational chart from last year is what we did is we combined, there were 2 supervisors in the clerk's office below the clerk. It was a criminal chief and a civil chief, and there was just some disconnect. So we actually brought in a new woman, Lakewood resident. Some of you may know her, Caitlin Magner. She's doing a phenomenal job. She's only been there a few months, but she is the chief over the criminal and civil divisions. And it's much more streamlined. She's still learning her way, but she's phenomenal. She's going to end up doing a wonderful job. Anything you want to add to that? So this is interesting. The court's caseload, it just keeps increasing significantly year to year. You'll see the first year, in March, we just took the same 3 months for 2022, 23, and 24. In March, the new cases that were filed through the court were 503. The following year, it increased to 599. And this year, to date, 715. Now, just to put it in perspective, sure, it's great. There's a lot more cases. The police officers are busy, but it affects every facet of the court and the city in many ways, because the cases have to get processed by our clerk's office. They have to be set on a docket, and we still have the same amount of staff to do all this work. And for the prosecutors as well, with the law department, they're hearing more cases, trying to resolve cases, more trials. And so it's keeping us really busy. I mean, we enjoy the work, obviously, and I think a lot of it is attributable to there's a lot of new, young police officers that were hired, and they're aggressively protecting our city, which we all want. And so that's something that's just really, we're seeing the effects of that, particularly, too, in the jail. The jail is full pretty much all the time. So in the beginning, I was doing jail cases a couple times a week. It is definitely every day now to make sure people are heard. We don't want them lingering in there for days on end without a bond, or even, the prosecutors are excellent at trying to resolve those cases while they're in the jail. We bring them up on Zoom in the courtroom, and it works perfectly. So I just wanted you to be aware of that, and it also increases the caseload for our probation department as well. To put that in a little bit of perspective is we have 2 full-time probationers and 1 part-time probationer, and they monitor over 200 cases per month. So it's a lot. Think about drug testing, calling their counselors, following up with their treatment. So they're really busy too, and it's all part of the increase of the cases filed. Oh, some of our 2024 accomplishments were, I'll be honest, I'm just so proud of how much we've been able to do in a short period of time. And I wouldn't have been able to do it without Maria's help. She's just been wonderful, and she's very persistent. You'll recall we received the maximum award of the $425,000 ARPA grant back in 2022. We got an extension on it, so we can spend that off through the end of this year, December 31st. And trust me, we've done that. Our Cuyahoga Public Defender, that contract will be ending at the end of this year. And I'll save this for questions if anyone asks, but we've got a good plan in place after that. And do you want to talk about some of the unused funds? Because you did a lot of that tedious work with.
Sure. So actually, if we actually go to the next slide, that's a little bit of an update. So on the left there, you see almost like, it's better if you don't hear me.
There you go.
Okay. On the left-hand side is more of like a chart that was given to us by OCJS. They put it into almost like a breakdown. So the personnel, equipment, and other costs. On the right-hand side is an update that I actually put together as far as funds received by the city to date. So personnel, that $180,000, again, like the judge had just mentioned, that's the grant, or a portion of the grant that we received to work with the Cuyahoga County Public Defender's Office, and for them to have a support staff person on site when they are present. So again, to date, we've reimbursed them $180,000. The equipment, we did scanners to get in, or to prepare for our new case management system. So what we're going to do with those is do real-time dispositions of cases, and then the scanning of all of those, so that the end result hopefully can be to shred and get rid of those case files, because then they will all be digitized. Again, all in real time. We did the laptops for the judge, myself, and the chief of the Civil and Criminal Division, so that, again, judge can be working from home if she needs to sign a warrant, if she needs to review a PC affidavit, and then same for myself and the other staff member. The kiosk, we'll get to that, or the judge will get to that, but we did a check-in kiosk, the installation and the purchase of that stand itself. And then as far as other costs are concerned, we were able, thank you to the ARPA grant and against OCJS, but they were allowing us to move some of those funds around for the ultimate total of $425,000, and we are able to use about $120,000 of that money towards our new case management system that's supposed to go live February of next year.
Thank you. Some more accomplishments. In April, we did a complete overhaul of our website. I encourage you to really look at it. It's nice. It's more appealing. You'll see a picture of the before and after in a moment. But it's just, and it's also mobile friendly, which is really significant for people who don't have a computer at home, or they don't want to have to wait and call the court and find out when their case is and what time. So it's really very functional, and people can pay their traffic tickets through the website, and there's a direct form to contact the court on the website as well. So this was the former version of it. You can just see it's kind of just blah, boring. And this is what the page looks. It's a little weird how it doesn't slant like that, but
No.
the way she had to take the picture. But it's just more inviting, and just much easier to use. And of course, we had to get our lakefront in there. And in May, this is exciting. You may have read about the article I put into the Observer a little while ago, but we applied to the Ohio Supreme Court for a technology grant, particularly for this case management system that's going to go live in February of 25. It's coming up. And we were one of 8 courts in the entire state of Ohio that got that maximum award. Just like with the ARPA, we go for the max. Figure why not? And so, I mean, I'm just proud of the fact that we have received over $500,000 in grant money in 3 years. It's a lot of money, and I think it's probably, you know, unprecedented for the court. But I think it tells you that these agencies see the need, and that we, you know, in modernizing our court. And it'll be really helpful. And the other thing to note is that's money, so it's essential operations, the case management system. It's money the court doesn't have to come to you, our funding source, for, to have taxpayers pay for that. So, I mean, that's significant. Between this and the ARPA money that we're able to use for this new system, that's $270,000, which we don't have to ask to be allocated so that we can operate. So I think it's just really awesome we were able to get it. I'll let you talk about this, the kiosk. That's kind of your baby.
So, no, that was the judge's,
But,
that when I first started, the judge said, I want to see some sort of self check-in kiosk. And I said, okay, I'll try to make it happen. So with the grant, like the judge just mentioned, we did obtain a check-in kiosk. So all defendants, when they arrive to the building, whether it's a criminal case, a civil case, or truthfully, even if they want to try to check in for a wedding, or if they have questions for the bailiffs, you'll see actually on the next slide, that is a stack right there of a Tuesday 1 o'clock arraignment. So all of those files, they're slim plastic files. They have 3 sheets of paper in each one of them, but you can see there's probably between 70 and 80 cases sitting on that check-in kiosk. We used to have a bailiff, the judge's personal bailiff, sitting there checking everybody in one by one. That check-in kiosk now to the right-hand side is digitized. You go in, you choose your name with the last 3 letters of your last name. It pulls up your case. You verify that it's you. You verify that that's the case you're here for. And then you can see all the way to the right that it timestamps when you were here. So what we do is with the 1 o'clock dockets on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the arraignments, we take the defendants, or we take the prospective people in the order that they arrived, which I think everybody is very, very appreciative of, because there are people that do arrive at 12:05, and they sit there because they want to get their case heard. So the kiosk, like I said, it not only checks people in, it timestamps the people that are here. It allows the judge to know when people are here for their marriages or for their weddings. And then lastly, it does have a frequently asked questions. So simple questions such as, what do I need to obtain my driver's license? Again, probably 10 to 15 simple questions that they can click on.
Yeah, it's proven to work really well and effective, and it helps the bailiffs a lot too, because the check-in appears on their desktop computer, so they can be doing the busy work they need to without sitting out in the hall like that at the desk for an hour. So I think they appreciate it as well. Oh, the physical files in the in the garage. I don't know if any of you had a chance to tour that, but we're going to give you a snapshot picture of it. So we've been working on that since we got here, and we've been able to digitize 4 years worth of the civil files, and we have 4 more ready to go, right?
We started digitizing when the judge was elected in 2008. We did 4 years just this year, so we're up to 2015. So we're within 8 to 9 years of becoming real time.
Right, and it's just, we'll show you the photo here, but it's just really not appropriate to be boxing court documents in a cardboard box in a garage. So I'm really glad the scanning system is working, and it's freeing up space too for the city eventually. I'm sure they could use that garage for something, important. And so this is a snapshot. This is only one small aisle in that garage with these old metal file cabinets. They're all full of paper files. And then as they got full, the boxes pile up on top. So we're gradually, nipping away at it. And the file bound on to the right, what the clerks can do once a case is digitized is they can just search it by file name or a case number, and it'll locate it, and they can download it and gather any information they need, say if there's a public records request or something along that line. Is there anything you would add?
I don't think so.
2025 objectives and goals, we have a lot of them, and I think they're all good ones that are going to just really make a difference next year for the court. Our case management system will go live that first quarter, and we went with a company called Henshin and Associates for several reasons. One, they're based in Ohio, they're out of Bowling Green, and 50 of the courts in the state of Ohio use this company. And they're real hands-on, and honestly, case management systems for courts, there's nothing spectacular. There's just nothing great, and so we picked the best of three that we believed based on our research. Maria visited multiple municipal courts to just see how it works in action. I've talked with judges who use it, and we went with this Henshin and Associates, and we're pleased so far with their work product. And let's see. Oh, and we will continue to upgrade the court areas in just minor ways, painting. We probably will have to get some new desks for some of the magistrates, but we really want to thank Public Works. They're excellent and helping us out in that area. I'll let you talk about the scanning again. I can't read the blue one.
I can't either. Next time, don't pick that color, right?
Attorney General's office.
The grant funding the state may begin scanning. Oh, we're just going to continue. I'm sorry. So we're just going to continue to scan the civil files like I had mentioned. We're up to 2015. So if I can continue down the road of using our interns and our summer help, they are phenomenal in just packing up those boxes. Again, we use a local company that file bound. It's actually GBS, but they come, they pick up all the files. They scan everything in. We do actually a status or a data check. We pull up specific files throughout each of the years, make sure that everything is scanned in to the T, from page 1 to whatever it is, page 10, page 52, whatever the case may be, but make sure that the entire file is there. And then they actually go ahead and do a destruction order, and they get rid of those files for us. So it's kind of like a one shot, one kill type thing. They come, they pull in, they take all the files out of the garage, and we never see them again. We do, again, double check to make sure that everything is there, but once it's gone, it's gone. It's a great system, and as the judge had mentioned, our hopes are to continue with that and get up to real time and to date.
That's the Attorney General collections.
Oh, with the Henshin and Associates, I believe maybe prior administration had used Capital One as a collection agency, but I have sought out, and I believe it's a great working relationship with the Ohio Attorney General's office. So we're going to be working with them that once, the defendant hasn't paid on their case for several months, we'll be sending it to collection, and the Attorney General will work hand in hand with Henshin and Associates to collect that money that's owed to the court.
Yeah, and one thing I want to add about Henshin and Associates, it's going to allow the court to do some really awesome things. For one, we had a great meeting with the chief of police and his staff and fleet and IT, Mike Coletta, because we're going to be transitioning to e-citations. So that means all the officers will have a printer in their vehicle. They'll be able to type, which will save my staff their eyes because they can't always read what the officers print. So it'll be typewritten, and the individual will be handed a typewritten copy of their ticket, and it'll be uploaded and scanned to our staff in the computers, and it'll just be so much more efficient. We won't have all these carbon copies of tickets. But I want to thank the chief because he's working really hard to get training completed on that. And also, you want to talk about the LexisNexis and that payment?
Yeah, so again, a thank you goes to Mr. Vargo and his staff. We worked with LexisNexis and the law department getting a contract put together between, or a partnership, I should say, between the two entities. So LexisNexis is going to not only help in taking in those payments. There's going to be a general number now. So when you call into the court, there's going to be option 1 to choose LexisNexis, and you can make waiverable tickets can be paid through them, as well as anyone that's on a payment plan. So again, staff won't have that call. Right now, we do payment hearings once a month, but they won't have those calls every single day, or that crazy strenuous once a month day that everyone is calling in to make their $5 payment or $10 payment. It's actually going to be through LexisNexis. They will take all of those payments for us. But without a doubt, that's going to be a great, great relationship. Not only that, but when people make online payments, because it'll be a 24/7 service. So if someone feels the need to make their court payment at 2 a.m., someone will answer the phone, and we will get a digitized email every morning. It actually spits out, I believe, at 7 a.m. to myself and the bookkeeper of the court, anyone that has made an online payment or telephone payment.
Probably the last lofty goal for 2025 is we hope to seek out more funding, grants in particular, so that we can start scanning and digitizing the criminal case files. Those haven't been touched yet. So that would be the plan. That will take considerable time, and if all goes well, hopefully I can finish that project up in my second term.
Those cases, actually, just for curiosity, right, is they date back to the 70s. Mm-hmm. In that garage, there are cases, there are docket books that date all the way, they're very organized, but they're all the way back to the 70s.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Judge, and thank you, Administrator. We appreciate it. Council members, we've got a short amount of time for questions. Just briefly, the court, I believe, is a state government entity, correct?
Yes.
You're created by the state Supreme Court, and you've got the chartered authority to operate. And so we don't actually have authority over the court's budget, although, Director Mahoney, correct me if I'm wrong, since I think the dollars actually do flow, do we disperse checks and receive revenues through the finance department? So therefore, a dollar that comes through the city's finance department has to be accounted for it. So we have this hybrid kind of role here. And I think we may, is it accurate that court employees get benefits through the city? Or,
yes.
Okay. So there's a role, but in terms of policy and staffing and so forth, it's really the judge who is the decision maker. So we appreciate our partnership. Council members, questions? Councilman Evans.
Yeah, I don't have a question, just a comment. Thanks, Judge Neff and Maria, for the presentation. I want to just thank you for all the investments you're making in your digital infrastructure and bringing about those inefficiencies for the court. And a lot of that has to do with user experience. So every person who works here, user experience is a big part of our job. So I just want to thank you for your leadership in that area. And I think we can all probably learn some things about how we can better interact with folks. So I think thanks for your work and appreciate it.
Thank you. Other council members, Councilwoman Marks.
Yes, Judge Neff, I just want to acknowledge you, as Brian said, for the modernization you brought to the court. It's amazing what you've done in the short time you're there. It is so efficient and user-friendly and really puts us on the map. So thank you for your hard work and your organization. I appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilwoman Keppel.
Sure, I'll jump on that bandwagon. But truly, I know Council Member Strebig and I think Councilwoman Marks and I got to tour not too long ago, and it was really fascinating, both everything that goes on there. I've thankfully never been in Lakewood's municipal court otherwise, so it was very interesting, and also to see the level of modernization. I'm obviously a big fan of technological improvements, and really everything that you're describing is making a better experience for the people we serve and making things more efficient, and we just really appreciate all of that investment. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the judge and Maria for coming, and I echo those same comments. I know, being in a law department, RC2s are things that are maybe not super fun, but they're really important on how you handle records and dispose of them and digitize them, and it takes really thoughtful and organized work. But I actually do have a question. So, Judge, you mentioned the Public Defender's Office and kind of that arrangement ending, but you have a plan. So I would feel remiss not to ask you what the plan is, since
No,
you
I
teased it.
figured someone, I was hoping someone would. It just, what we realized is just what a wonderful relationship it is to have an attorney at the court during those critical times, and criminal arraignments in particular. I mean, let's face it, majority of the people who come through a court, they're indigent. They cannot afford an attorney. And it's just wrong to me to make them come back multiple times until we can get them an attorney. I want someone who can be there. It just expedites their case. It's less traumatizing for them, you know, trying to get a bus ride. It's just, there's a whole gamut of things that play into it. So we will have a public defender. He actually, believe it or not, neither one of us knew him. Someone referred him to us. We interviewed. He just resigned from the Cuyahoga County Public Defender's Office and is going out on his own, so he will be our part-time public defender at the court. And we already talked about what days we think it's critical for him to be there, particularly Mondays. That's when our jail is likely the fullest, you know, after a weekend. And it's just, I just don't like having people sit, you know, 2 days, 3 days, because we can't get an attorney to come to the court. So we'll have that person.
So if I understand the arrangement correctly, rather than contracting with the public defenders, we will just have a contract attorney that will
Correct.
provide that service.
Yes.
Right. Thank you, and I appreciate all those efforts. And I, you know, to the rest of the council members' comments, you know, you may be a separately, you know, through the state of Ohio chartered entity, but the public sees us all as the city, right? So to the extent your guys' good work looks good for us, so we appreciate it. So keep it up. And I know that those types of things you're talking about, it's not only the right thing to do, which I love, but it's also, it's better for court and judicial efficiency so that your time isn't wasted either, right? Or your court's time isn't wasted dealing with those issues. Right? So if you just have that counsel there, it just speeds up judicial efficiency, which works well for everyone. So thank you.
And I'll just add to that, I mean, we've had an exceptional experience with the various departments of the mayor's administration. I mean, anywhere from IT to the law department, to fleet, to public works. So I can't speak highly about the individuals who work for our city. And as you point out correctly, Councilman, we are separate entities, but yet we still have to have camaraderie and work together because it's the only way you get things accomplished.
Thank you.
These council members to my left. Councilman Rader.
Appreciate it, through the chair. Just want to note, following my colleagues here, and note my thanks for your hard work in modernizing the court. I think it definitely shows. You know, we're often in the public. In fact, I spent quite a lot of time knocking doors this past year, and I've noticed a marked change, I think, people's attitude towards the Lakewood court. And I just want to thank you for your fairness and continue to create this efficiency. I think that reflects on respecting everybody's rights and individual freedoms, at the same time as balance that with the safety and justice that we seek here as a community that's a suburb of Cleveland and has inner city challenges. So I really want to thank you for just stepping up to the plate these last few years, and I'll look forward to continuing to work together in a different capacity, perhaps.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Striebeck.
Thank you. Congratulations on all the wonderful work that you've done in the last couple years, and the improvements and the updates and the technology that you're using that is really, seems like it's jumped our court from the 1940s to the present day. I mean, it's a very impressive, and I just wanted to say thank you and echo all the words that have been shared from my colleagues here, and also to say that's a genuine reflection of both of you, and you're caring for the citizens of Lakewood. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and I'll conclude with a question or two. One is, first, thanks for saving space, physical space in the city, or at least that's on the way once the digitization project is complete. This is a nice tee-up for the IT division coming soon tonight. But one way for us to stretch our existing facility, which is an old one, is to reduce the amount of storage, and so that's an interesting opportunity as we approach, you know, paperless as a standard practice. But of course, city government courts have public records storage obligations. So this, for the first time, is a shift. I'll note that my wife points this out, that a way to add square footage to your small, average Lakewood home is to declutter the attic, and I'm still working to do that. So I'm getting inspiration. As far as the sheer budget numbers, it looks like most of the proposed funding levels are flat or within a pretty close range. There was a jump up from 2023 to the current year, 2024. Is that, Judge, reflecting the new staff person in the administration? And then also, how are we paying for, it sounds like it's going to be a half-time public defender, no longer grant funded, but in-house, and that all works in the budget?
Yeah, that's all been discussed with Jessica and Keith and Renee, actually, as well. And so some of the things that did go up, you're better explaining this, and I
Yeah,
like the postage.
And as far as the public defender, I know that you had mentioned that, but through the grant, I mean, that was $225,000. That was for full-time, 40 hours a week, plus a staff member.
Yeah.
Truthfully, I don't know that all of that is necessary, which is why we, tailored it back to, there isn't a support staff person that is needed. We're doing a part-time public defender. Again, we worked out days so that he can be here to fulfill, like the judge said, touching on the jail, and then obviously those arraignment days. But I think maybe the other things that you are seeing is a computer maintenance increase. That's based on, again, when we go to modernize the court, of course, while all of it looks pretty and shiny and new, with it also comes the maintenance of all of the kiosk. We have a probation kiosk, it requires maintenance. That check-in kiosk, it requires an annual maintenance. So sort of those things. The special projects, that increases just to cover, again, the new case management system. We want to make sure that there's plenty of funding there for everything that we're going to need. That's not to say that, it'll need to be as high next year, but again, it's just to cover all the changes and updates that we'll be doing with those e-citations and working very closely with the chief of police. The last one, and these are, two I would like to say minor. One is increase in supplies. And truthfully, I mean, that's just because your everyday person goes to the store. A pack of pens isn't 99 cents anymore, right? So again, it's just that typical staples, tape. We don't like to say whiteout. Pens, pencils, that sort of thing. And then the last would be the increase in postage. And again, that's just to the lay person. Postage, to send a certified piece of mail through the civil department used to be, $3, $4. Actually, every certified piece of mail that leaves our office right now is upwards of $9 to $10 a piece.
Wow.
And it's required by the civil rules, so we have to do it, so we don't have a choice there.
Understood. Well, thank you for the thoughtful presentation. Maybe next year in a public safety committee context, I'd certainly welcome the chance to digest and understand the impact of the increased caseload, whether that's positive, negative, or even. Just thinking of how what the effect is, and then also, of course, how we measure effectiveness in a court context. It's not the same as others because you're dispensing justice, not efficiency or something else. But I certainly agree with the points of my colleagues here that the customer service improvements are going to be A, appreciated, and B, very worthwhile. So it's a good briefing that we're receiving today. Thank you. Any concluding comments, or we can let you go back to your evening?
In spite of all the work, I mean, I won't say it hasn't been challenging, but it's rewarding and exciting, and I relish the fact that I still get up every day and never think, oh, I wish I didn't have to go into the court. So that's good. I have a lot of energy, and I just want to keep pushing forward and hopefully doing some more good things.
Fantastic. Thanks, Judge Neff.
All right,
We
thanks.
appreciate it. Cheers.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Next is Human Services Department, Director Chad Berry. And Director Berry, are you anchoring this solo, or do you have other members of your team with you?
Solo tonight.
Okay. Very good. Okay, and Director, we're a little behind pace, not badly, but if, to the degree that you're able to give us the high points in your presentation, and then we can reserve time for Q&A to go in depth, that would be
Absolutely,
helpful.
we can definitely do that.
But if you've got some breaking news or some lightning in a bottle, don't hold back.
I don't. Well, thank you for having me tonight. We'll just go through. These are our typical slides, our wonderful things going on. Cove continues to be a fantastic space for the community to convene and for Human Services to do a large majority of our work. This year, I kind of focused on just our goals and then the budget modifications that came with that, if there were any, actually. So our goals this year for Human Services are enhancing community support, and you can read these: optimizing operations and strengthening preparedness. Obviously, we had a major storm, so we want to make sure that, you know, all aspects of Human Services in Lakewood are prepared and ready to serve our community and our 50,000 residents. We didn't have many budget adjustments in the Human Services department, as it were. We are just still continuing to find our alignment now that we are over at Cove, kind of shifting different line items from where they were historically, let's say in a divisional budget, more towards a single unified spot. So we don't have to look all over the place to find a penny here, a penny there to pay for one item that does benefit the whole of Human Services. So. Our Division of Aging has done a lot of great work this year. We've, really kind of increased all across the board. I have numbers for you later, but it's really been cooking. We've served probably about 120 folks a day through aging alone, and we've really increased our fitness classes and all of the different aspects and things that we weren't able to do in the past just because of even space constraints. And again, the budget modifications for aging were fairly flat. We just kind of moved things again to reflect our unified location. Division of Youth, there's quite a bit going on, certainly with our community-based services contract with Cuyahoga County. A lot of the work through them has increased. We've seen that there's been a large shift of folks moving from the east side, where a lot of these services were traditionally, heavily utilized over the west side. So we're seeing the same thing. So we're looking through our contract with Cuyahoga County, and if it does get approved, we submitted our RFP, our proposal, a week ago. For this. We did request an additional full-time case management position and a part-time resource specialist position to aid in this work. We've also, and if that is approved, we would move forward with those positions. If it's not, we'll continue with what we have. And just to remind everybody, those positions are fully funded by Cuyahoga County, so this doesn't really come out of general fund per se. We also noticed, for H2O in particular, we're always kind of looking for money all over the place, and we're going to continue to do that. But we found that it might be helpful to have a little bit of money set aside for contractual services, to find subject matter experts, to help with the programming, and to help Emmy and Amy kind of do their work. So we've set aside $2,500 graciously for that. And then again, we've just kind of realigned where the funds are going. Again, like I said, we've found that there's been a large shift of folks coming over to this side of town, a lot of needs with families. We've tried to start implementing an actual case management model. So we're using motivational interviewing, informed wraparound model. So bringing everyone to the table and kind of coordinating the resources to take care of folks, that's been a big thing this year, and we're going to continue to do that. And then H2O, will continue to, increase their programming. Early childhood, which most of you know is the family room, we're just continuing to increase services there. We just celebrated our 30th year of the family room about a month ago. You know, we're looking to continue to expand our offerings for folks that are thinking about having families, even creating that relationship and that peer support group before they even have kiddos, so they can kind of hopefully easily transition into parenthood. The birth circle continues to be a great opportunity for families in Lakewood. I was just speaking with Maureen earlier, and I said I think this is like one of our crown jewels of the Department of Human Services. And what we've done here, kind of help out with that, is to find $10,000 for contractual services, again, to pay our doula and to pay any subject matter experts in the new parent group, and Brenda, who does our Learn Through Play, and then any other people that might come into the mix that might provide a service. We have a little bit of funding set aside, so again, we don't have to necessarily go out and look for community funding, and we can kind of move quickly and be nimble. But still, you know, the human services, I think we're always looking for funding opportunities outside of the general fund or to offset. You can take a look at these, you know, very typical, our, you know, human services. We want to make sure that we're going to the community and asking the community what their needs are, and making smart decisions about the programming we offer to fill the needs. You know, we're going to continue to do that. We're also looking at efficiencies and different avenues to just improve how we're providing services. Still, we're figuring out Cove and all the things that go along with managing a large building in a large space with a high amount of traffic every day. So we're just continuing the work that we've been doing, and, you know, improving the programs that we have. I put together this slide just to kind of demonstrate some of our estimated external funding sources for next year. Some of these are set in stone. Some of these are still coming through. Many of these will cross council's dais shortly with a memo of receiving the funds, because they're just kind of coming through now. So you can see that we offset a large amount of our budget with different funds from different sources. This year, we luckily received a NOACA grant for mobility, so that'll allow us to purchase another transportation vehicle. That'll cover $100,000 of the vehicle. I worked with the Lakewood Foundation, received an additional $50,000 for a grant that we received back in 2020 that we've been having difficulty with, so we'll be receiving 2 new vehicles here shortly. And then again, we heavily utilize our the Healthy Lakewood Foundation and others in Cleveland here to provide services.
Real quick, Mr. Chair, can you go back? What's TLF, Senior Transportation Vehicle?
The Lakewood Foundation.
Okay.
Yeah, so
It should be HLF. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Director Barry. Council members, I want to open up for questions. And I had a question for you that just slipped my mind. So, Councilwoman Marks.
Thank you, Director Barry. I just want to say that I attended your 30-year anniversary of the family room, and it was really amazing to me. Of course, I've never had children, never had to experience the family room as a mother, but it was really amazing, the positive comments people made and what a difference it made in their lives and what a contribution it made to them. It was really wonderful to hear that. I'm so happy that we have that here in Lakewood, and I'm sure that we are envied by many communities for that. And it works so well. And the bonds that have formed between parents over that experience is really quite phenomenal. And it really shows how community forms. So I really appreciate all your efforts in making that a success. So thank you very much for being a champion for that.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilwoman Marks, and I agree with the point you just hit upon, which is how community forms, and that's something that Lakewood does exceptionally well. We maybe sometimes take for granted that that happens, but we really shouldn't for a bunch of different reasons. And for sure, I joined you, of course, in supporting the Family Room event. That really is a special place. My own family participated and benefited from that. Other council members? Councilwoman Keppel.
Thank you, and just echoing on that, all the many, many wonderful things that your department does. But in terms of the early childhood programming too, that early investment in families, when we just had the judge here talking about caseload, that we, that investing in family and children early has lasting effects, and continuing on with H2O so that folks are set up for good, healthy, supported lives in our community. I did just want to ask about the Connections program. I saw there was like $1,000 from Healthy Lakewood Foundation. Is that program fully funded for the year? Or are we still seeking funding for the upcoming year, or how is that?
We've been working with Colleen Cronin to get the program back up off the ground. The funds that were shown there were actually funds that were reappropriated for their program from the Healthy Lakewood Foundation. I worked with Kate and the board to get that done. So that will buy some nice furniture and comfortable seating and that kind of thing, just to make it a more warm and welcoming spot. We already actually started the programming at Cove as of probably 3-4 weeks ago. It's been going well. I think the new vision and the new staff behind it from Colors Plus is going to do a really good job. And I'm looking at some other avenues of how to get youth there. Obviously, I think it's a little difficult for some of the other folks that maybe aren't at Garfield, to get there easily. So I'm trying to figure that out right now, and I'm hoping to put together some sort of way to get them there. The funding, they've actually found quite a bit of funding through the Adams Board and other ways, and they've reappropriated some stuff. So we're going to be working with them on additional funding. But right now, I think we're good for a little while as we figure it all out.
Great. Thank you. I was really excited to see that program come back, and
Yeah,
I know
me
it's
too.
really important for our youth, particularly right now. So thank you.
Me too.
Thanks. Councilman Baker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Director Barry. Echoing some of my colleagues' comments, I mean, social infrastructure isn't one thing, but it's a lot of things, and it creates healthier and happier communities, more resilient communities. So I think what your department does is the largest part of that in Lakewood, and why we have better outcomes. One thing I'm always curious about, and I saw that there was a couple grant sources for like early childhood daycare scholarships. I know we appropriated some ARPA funds for it. There's some CBDG money that goes towards it. How are we doing there? Are we able to meet the need in the community, or are there gaps? Are there still people that, they get to the end of the year and we don't have any more money left in the pot for them? Could you kind of go through that?
Yeah, so last year, obviously, we noticed that there was going to be a shortfall. So we reached out to the Healthy Lakewood Foundation. They generously granted us $55,000 over the course of 2 years to cover the difference between what CDBG would cover and then where we would still have, or where we would fall short. So for the next, for all of next year, we should be completely fine as far as who is currently enrolled, and we should even be able to add maybe 1 or 2 more families. During the course of this year, though, it's the intention of Human Services and Early Childhood to kind of really do a lot of intense data gathering and figure out what the actual need is for the program in the community. I don't believe there is no need in the community, but I think we need to find an actual, we actually have to pull in those numbers and collate that and get that together so we can actually go out to funders and make a real ask and be confident in what we're asking for. So over the course of the next year, there's going to be, I think we'll probably engage someone, and we'll have some surveys that'll come out, and we'll figure all these kinds of data points out, and we'll work with the Healthy Lakewood Foundation too. They've offered kind of some technical support in that way, just to kind of figure that out. But I firmly believe in the program. I want it to continue. I think we can find ways for it to continue. It is becoming more and more difficult for it to exist because of just the cost of everything these days. But we have a really great early child care community in Lakewood, of providers even, and, you know, they're all at the table with Jessica and with early childhood, so, you know, she convenes them and they really talk about these kinds of issues. So there's probably some very creative things that we can do again as Lakewood. I think we're always kind of at the forefront of some of the innovations in social services. So continuing that is my hope. And certainly when it comes time and we have a little bit more information, I'm sure I'll be here asking for your guys' support as well.
Well, thank you, and you certainly would love to be a part of those conversations to the extent it's helpful. I don't want to get in the way, but I just know that as we talk about the cost of living and keeping young families in this community, I mean, that is a part of it. So I just would want to make sure that everyone who was eligible knew about it, and also you know, it's goes locally to employers here in town that run these early childhood centers. So happy to be a part of that conversation. And I think, you know, ideally every dollar the city puts in, you can get dollars elsewhere. So you kind of force multiply, which is the whole idea behind getting grants. So happy to support it, and whatever I can do to help, let me know.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Councilman Rader?
Thank you. I'll echo that thanks, and get straight to the question here. Just Senior Transportation Connection, is that still a partnership we're running? I did notice that, and an excellent work getting grant money to buy new vehicles. What is like the split, I guess? Like, what does Senior Transportation Services do in terms of getting people around? I see that we were continuing the 2 full-time, or I think it's 1 part-time, 1 full-time, or 2 part-time equivalents equaling 2 full-time equivalent, something like that. Drivers, it's staying the same. The number of drivers and the budget is staying relatively the same. We're getting new vehicles. How does that break up? Like, how are we getting people around the city, and is that working out, or do changes need to be made? That kind of.
I think our current transportation model is working well. I think there's certainly room for improvement. I know Senior Transportation Connection in general has been looking at, you know, their model, and they've had really difficult conversations, and they've been trying to figure out how and where they're going in the future. They've involved every city and every partner. They've involved Lakewood very deeply in that conversation. They're still trying to figure it out, but they're great partners. I don't think we could really do it very easily without them, and I shudder to even think about that, honestly. The split is probably, anymore, it's probably close to, you know, it's near 50-50, quite frankly. I mean, we've really amped up our transportation in and around the city, and we've really started going on a lot of day trips and things.
Good.
And instead of utilizing a coach service, we've utilized our own drivers. We have 1 full-time and 2 part-time drivers, and that's been great having them. So, you know, there's probably still, again, work to do with that, but I think it's working very well, especially for the non-emergency medical transportation. The scheduling becomes the biggest challenge when it comes to transportation. So, you know, it's a good partnership, and the fees and the cost to that has not really risen over the last couple of years, even though they're looking at ways to make more money.
Sure. Well, thank you for that. I just know that at least some of the seniors I talked to, being able to get to Cove has been good. It's been the access has been excellent. I want to make sure that we're continuing to make that an accessible resource for folks, since it's now at one side of the city rather than the other. I know there was some worry about that, but it seems to me that folks are able to access those services pretty efficiently, and it sounds like we're continuing that, and things are moving smoothly. So again, thank you for all your hard work over this year, and look forward to watching from slightly afar as we move into next year. So thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Councilwoman Striebeck?
Thank you. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Chair. Thank you and your staff for all the work that you do. As Councilmember Baker said, you know, the social programmings that knit the fabric of our community are so very important. I don't have a lot of questions on your programs, but I do have one question on a budget line in the Division of Youth, the Family to Family program for the contractual services. And this may be, I'm on page 156, and this is probably one of the first versions for contractual services that
The 3,000% increase?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much. That's the one that caught my eye there, and
Yeah.
you may have already covered that in your comments, but if you could just explain what that is there.
Yes, that is just, again, a shift from another line item. The number actually hasn't changed at all. We've just moved it into contractual services where it made the most sense as far as the semantics of the line item. So I don't exactly remember where it was before. It might have been in other, I believe. Yeah, it came out of this other category, but it was in fact a contractual service. So we just moved it up, and that's why it looks like there was a 3,000% increase, but in reality it was flat.
Do we know what that contractual service is?
This is emergency assistance funds from Cuyahoga County. So
Thank you.
when we provide the budget to Cuyahoga County, we have to break out the total funding. There's personnel, and then there's the direct costs of the program. So we typically allocate about $60,000 to emergency and non-emergency assistance.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Striebeck, any other follow-ups? Okay, thank you. We're doing just about on time. I've got some follow-up questions. Oh, Councilman Evans, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Director Barry, for the great presentation, for all the amazing work you do. I just think it's remarkable, kind of the pie chart of the department's funding and how much of that comes from external sources and how much of it comes from the general fund. So thanks for all the work you do to get out there and find every dollar to offset those funds. Just a quick question on communications. Are you finding ways to, I mean, there's so many amazing programs that are, taking place through the department, and I'm sure there are a great many folks that just aren't aware of what's out there. Are you looking at new ways of trying to reach those audiences, and how are you doing that?
Mm-hmm. I think one of the number one things that's helped us tremendously is having Kevin Wayner, the mayor, our communications person. He's been really instrumental, and he's come down to Cove and helped us out a lot. I mean, all of the senior week materials that you might have seen, that was pretty much all Kevin. So it's always a challenge, though. I think when we're dealing with a diverse age group and every piece of diversity you can imagine, not everyone's going to go on social media. Not everyone's going to look at printed media. But so we recognize that, and we try to cover all of our bases. So, we've definitely ramped up our postings in the Observer, any kind of printed publication. I think we've tried to increase how much we've been putting out there over the last year. Nancy Fian also has been doing a lot of our communications with our social media. So I think there's room for improvement. I don't think Human Services itself has always been the best marketer of what we offer the community. I think there's a lot of different things that we can do, and Kevin has been incredibly helpful in kind of guiding us on what options are out there. I don't know if we'll ever come to a perfect solution, but certainly I do welcome feedback on what we can do. It's really hard to keep up, I think, with the newest trends in marketing and how to get out there and what's the new app or whatever it is. I'm getting old, and I don't pay attention to all of these things, but I think we're doing an okay job, but I really would like to do a better job, because obviously there's 50,000 folks in Lakewood. We do work with and touch a fair amount of them, but certainly we could do better and connect with more folks, and I think it would be very enriching for them to connect with Cove, or at least know about its existence if they have a friend or family member. So.
Great, thank you.
I think following on Councilman Evans' dialogue with you, maybe it's, I think if I infer correctly, so just as the court has really been driving forward on digitization, say that 10 times fast, and using online and electronic user portals and so forth, there's efficiencies there, but there's also customer service improvements or customer experience improvements there. In your case, probably half or more of what Human Services does is public education. We don't issue tickets and citations to force people into healthy behaviors. We educate them into it. that means your job is actually more difficult than the most difficult kind of category of all, because you can't easily do that. And so that means if we get better each year at what Councilman Evans is talking about, then efficiency, effectiveness, improve. It's a force multiplier for your staff. I'd like to ask, my questions relate to page 147 on the budget, and maybe with the help of Director Mahoney and her team. So, and that on the PDF is actually 154, but 147 in the print version. That's a nice, helpful budget overview of human services across all 4 divisions and across a bunch of different categories. So I went through the budget presentation. The staffing is even, with the exception of +1 position in the Division of Youth for a human services caseworker. But the total dollar amount proposed is +24%. Now, that's a budgeted number, and future budgeting isn't the same thing as, for sure, we're spending each of those dollars. We're creating future budget capacity to, up to that amount to address the proposed needs. A lot of that is in fringe benefits, so I guess we anticipate as a city a significant increase in healthcare and all the rest, or we are charging a good amount of those costs to the department. But the other thing I guess I'd like help in ensuring and reading this correctly, if we look at the bottom of that page, the total expenditure by category from the general fund is only a 10% increase. So if I think I'm reading this correctly, a significant amount of the proposed increase comes from these other funding sources that we've been discussing, from Cuyahoga County and the various pass-through funds that we receive and administer. Do I have that accurately stated?
Yeah, I believe you do. We do receive approximately $700,000 a year. We will be receiving $700,000 a year from Cuyahoga County, and it offsets the full salaries of the positions and a large portion of their fringe benefits as well. So it is a minor burden to the general fund for that program.
Well, I also infer that maybe we are giving people promotions to the next salary band. Is that possible? So we may not be adding a new employee, but we may, for some seniority purposes, enhance the pay status, or we expect to?
I think there are a couple of union increases that are included in there as well. Step increases.
Anything to add from the finance department about how these numbers are characterized? A furious debate has erupted. You guys know each other so well in the subject matter that you can do it non-verbally.
Yeah, that's true. It would only be, contractual increases from the unions. There's no real promotions or anything budgeted. So it's just the contractual.
Okay.
increases.
So I'm just trying to get my hands around. So how does the city, when we're budgeting for this and budgeting to do a good job and to grow over time, I do see reference to strategic planning. How do we juggle or account for the fact that the other funds that we make use of, we don't directly control those? Do you have a way to deal with a down year, if a down year occurs, if the county or the state or the feds don't provide as much as we typically got or we planned for?
Certainly, there can be readjustments in the contract. It is usually pretty stable. It's a multi-year master contract with the 10 other agencies. They do look at utilization, but we're consistently number 1 or 2 as far as the work that we're doing and the amount of people that we're serving that we should not. It is, of course, difficult to account for any changes with the county. But it has been an incredibly stable contract over the course of time that we've had it, and it's now been close to 20 years of one form or another. If we have people that leave the department or there is, which we will actually have, this will probably be less, because we're losing someone that's at their max step increase. They're moving to a different position at a different employer. We have the ability to offset other salaries. So in years where there's excess funds here, what I will do is, if there are other employees in the Department of Human Services that have provided a large amount of their time to this program, I will offset their salary, and then the general fund will have that excess that they expected to spend for that personnel cost, and that will not be the case. They'll have the county paying that. And then in the last couple of years, we've been able to offset some salaries up to 40%.
Okay, so, yeah, and I do know that, I'd note in the budget, it says, since 1899, the city has committed to human services, which is a bold statement. So we're in our third century here. So it's not a new budget task that you're describing at all. And it's good to hear that because of our top in the county utilization, that helps to maintain our budgetary standing with, I presume it's the county, but that's the key.
DCFS.
Okay, very good. Okay, anything else from council members or the administration? Okay, hearing none, then thank you, Director Barry, for your time.
Thank you
Please feel free to go back to your evening or stay for the riveting discussion. And next up is IT Division Manager Mike Coletta. We like to call you Director Coletta, or Commandant Coletta, as the case may be. Given the essential nature of IT to everything, as we've been saying in the previous two budget discussions tonight. So, Mr. Coletta, would you like to kick us off with a presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a very short presentation, so there will be plenty of time for questions. Okay, some accomplishments from this year. We finished the work that we started a couple of years ago with changing the domain name for the city. We changed the website to .gov, but we did not do the email domain at the same time. So we have finally gotten around to doing that with the benefit of just increasing the authenticities when constituents are communicating with the city. They know that it's a legitimate communication. There was no cost to the city to do so, and there's just an effort from the federal government to assist state and local governments with doing this. So we are a bit ahead of the game. We put a lot of effort this year in strengthening our cybersecurity capabilities. I hate to talk about specifics in a public meeting, but one of the things that you're all familiar with was the multi-factor authentication that we actually dovetailed that with the changing to the .gov. So that was new, as well as some zero trust software, which so far so good. But basically, the software is on every city computer, and it's an implicit deny type software. So unless we specifically allow the software to run, it will be blocked. So it's caused minimal disruption. When a legitimate program is needed by a city employee, they have an option right on their computer to request access with the reason why. And we get, in the IT department, we get notifications in real time, and we can make an exception, and henceforth they are allowed to run that program. So that was a really strong initiative. I feel I'm never totally confident because the bad guys are always changing their methods, but I feel that we're doing a pretty good job. We continued our PC purchase to do the final third. This does not count City Council, which you guys will be getting new laptops and remarkable devices next month. But we finished.
I think saying new, we don't have any laptops, so we will.
Oh.
Just to be clear, new implies that we have
Yes,
laptops currently.
new mobile technology. And I say we, in past tense, that we replaced all the main data center servers, added redundant servers. This is an ongoing project, so this is going to keep us kind of busy into next year. But this was a full replacement of our computing infrastructure across the hall. This project, this is the ADP project to modernize our payroll and timekeeping system. We've worked in conjunction with HR and Finance to provide some project management and implementation support. This system is set to go live on Sunday, so stay tuned. That has represented a lot of time and effort. There's a lot of interfaces involved, so we're going to be very busy over the next few weeks. We did provide implementation support for the municipal court, as Judge Neff talked about Hench & Associates. So we provided the data extracts or exports from their current system, and we are working in conjunction with that company to get the software installed on all of their computers. We assisted the Housing and Building Division with digitizing their paper files. So that is ongoing, but Commissioner Parmalee seems very happy with the results. We just, last month, implemented some new print management software, which will give us much easier access managing printers and also giving us a better view of printing costs. So here's a snapshot of the budget. There's the one thing of note here is it shows negative 100% on capital. We are taking a bit of a breather next year, simply because we've done so much this year that there's a lot of carryover work, and we're also going to be researching a replacement for the city's financials software. So between just carryover work from projects this year and that, that's why you're seeing zero in capital.
Chief Coletta,
Yes.
I noticed that line, and I understand it, but in the back, the capital budget, it does show, just because I happen to know, because you mentioned the council laptops. So that shows in the capital budget, so I just wanted some clarification, maybe that's from finance, but making sure that it's in there, because it's in the capital budget on the back of the book. And there's 25,000 on page 171, I think. No.
Mr. Chairman, Council
Yeah.
Keppel, we always fund IT's capital budget in the current year. So when we finalize the 2024 appropriation ordinance on Monday, before you vote on it, there'll be additional dollars that you saw in the capital plan that will be in IT's budget this year for the projects that are scheduled for 2025.
Okay, great. So just wanted to make sure that it was accounted for. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director Schuster.
Can I clarify and follow up? Mr. Schuster, can you just repeat what you said? We always fund what in the current year? We always fund the ensuing year's IT capital?
Mr. Chairman, the last probably 10 years or so, we have funded the capital projects for IT in basically the prior year. So in 2024, we are going to fund Mr. Coletta's projects. We know what that is. We'll have it funded in the budget this year, and then he'll be able to spend those dollars next year. So we have a mechanism in the system that we have an encumbrance out there for Mr. Coletta, and then basically he draws down on the old encumbrance purchase order, if you will, in 2025, but we've budgeted for those monies and those projects in 2024.
Now, just to keep following on this point, is that simply a timing difference, or is that a savings when, at the end of a given fiscal year, we say we've saved enough? Let's use 2024 as an example. We've saved enough in 2024 compared to budget that we now have a certain portion of funds which we then are confident can be used for the 2025 IT capital, and therefore that really is a net savings, so it's not appearing, to the council president's point, in the budget book for next year because of what I'm talking about? Or is it not that at all? It's just that traditionally, we started this tradition of a timing difference where we're paying earlier.
Mr. Chairman, it is a timing difference, but it's also, we funded it so we know that those projects can go forward next year. So the monies are available and can be used in 2025.
So there's a implementation efficiency advantage to doing it that way?
That's correct.
Okay. So kind of like in the road resurfacing budget, we have developed a healthy habit of getting out to bid very early in the cycle so that we get good bids and we're first in line for implementation. Okay, thanks for that interjection. Mr. Coletta, do you want to continue? Thanks.
Sure. So for 2025 goals, I mentioned just research and planning for a replacement of our accounting system, also the utility billing system and online water bill payment website. That is all currently on an older, I would say it's a IBM-based system, not mainframe, but the descendants of the mainframe, and it served the city very well for many, many years. However, it's showing its age, and we need to update. So with Director Mahoney and her staff, I will work, and we will find a suitable replacement. Kind of going along the lines of the replacement of the police and fire radios that we did last year, we are going to seek grant funding to do the same for Public Works. The state has opened up the MARCS system to outside of public safety, so Public Works is legitimate usage. We have already obtained the channel from the state, and I'm working with the grant consultant to get funding. We're going to continue to replace older police street cameras. We actually obtained the cameras this year. We just haven't installed them just yet. We will be rolling out new remote access technology, a help desk work order system, which is new, and new mobile device management software. So those last 3 bullet points are all in one software package that we began using a few months ago. So that is that, and I will be glad to take any questions you may have.
Thanks. We should start from this end of the dais first, although let's give Council President Keppel, our IT expert, the first right of first questioning. Council President Keppel.
Sorry to disappoint. I'm just going to give you some praise here, Chief Coletta, but I appreciate all the work on, particularly with security. We saw that our neighbors to the east really suffer with security recently, and we don't want to see that happen here.
Right.
I do, no, everything, I really appreciate, I'm very excited to see the updates to both the public-facing and internal software. I feel like we've had kind of a hodgepodge network of things from different departments over the years, and just like we were talking about with the judge, and upgrading all these things is a better user experience both for our staff and for the public. So, no, I don't actually have any questions. Thank you for all your work.
Very good, thank you. Councilwoman Strebe?
Thank you. I just, one thought with the new utility payment methods.
Yes.
Is that an opportunity for us to get announcements out to people? I'm thinking of the water bill specifically that always has a lot of great information that I never get to share with my tenants unless I take a picture of it and send it to them. I'm wondering if this is another opportunity to share more information with our neighbors.
I suppose so. I would, you know, I'm not sure what's out there, but that sounds like a pretty good idea, actually. So, you know, it's certainly not my area of expertise, but to your point, we do use the water bills currently to spread information. So, in that spirit, I don't see why that wouldn't be something we would entertain. So,
Thank you.
yep.
Councilman Rader?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Director Coletta. It's been an honor to work with you over the last 7 years. And
Likewise.
yeah, it's been great. So real quick, remind me, is the website under your domain, or is that like?
Just very little, like the domain name itself, the actual management and of the content is through community relations.
Got it. Okay, so maybe I'll save my questions for community relations, but you know, it's been a while since we've had a rehaul of our website, and certainly it's great compared to other cities' websites. I think it is actually was cutting edge when it was done almost, I think, we're pushing 10 years on that remodel.
Yeah.
Maybe it's been 8, but it'll be 10 by the time we redo it. So I wanted to just flag that. Maybe those something to come back to. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Baker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple questions. Thank you, Director Coletta. Talked about the phone upgrades. Could you go through a little bit of like what our current phone system is and how we intend to
Sure.
upgrade?
So we put that, the current phone system is, when we purchased it in 2013, it was called ShoreTel. ShoreTel was bought out by Mitel, which is a Canadian company. Mitel was committed to maintaining the ShoreTel platform. However, they just announced that in 2029, they're going to end of life that platform in favor of their other product line. The phone sets themselves are largely okay. We've replaced many over the years. It's the back-end hardware that I'm a little concerned about, but we do have, you know, a extended warranty on it. So it's just something that, you know, I've entertained the idea of foregoing a phone system. I know a lot of organizations are using Microsoft Teams, but I think as a city government, we have to have it because we're interfacing with the public. I know it's somewhat of a dying paradigm, but you know, unfortunately, these phone systems, there's two purchase options available. One is you do a phone system as a service and you pay handsomely every single year. The other is, you know, a large CapEx expenditure, and then you pay less year to year on maintenance. So I have calculated that for our city, doing the CapEx model is the less costly option. So originally I had it slated for next year, and then just through consultation with the administration, we decided to postpone it just 1 year. So it's not a, a piping hot emergency. It's just something I'd like to get out in front of just before we have. The maintenance that we pay for covers the back-end hardware. It does not cover the individual phone sets. So each phone set is like $300, so they're quite costly when they break. What I'm afraid of is, with manufacturing using like Six Sigma, everything's made to very tight tolerances, and when things break, they tend to break at the same time. So that's what I'm wanting to avoid.
Yeah, I think there's a world in which it's not all or nothing, right? Where staff that have cell phones maybe don't need desk phones, and because it's always interesting to me that like a signature block has, here's my cell phone, here's my desk line. It's like, well, how about just one number? And I know there's voice over IP products that can transcribe voicemails and all those kinds of things to make it a little bit more efficient. But good to hear we're looking into it and considering about kind of what would be best for us.
And to your point, I think, we can look at, really strongly, trying to reduce the number of phone sets. Departments will sometimes have like common area phones. If there's a phone in a hallway, perhaps we can change it to like a cordless version, and that can, reduce the number of sets needed. So there's various ways that I think we can economize.
Right, and then the last kind of questions I have are information security related, both from the city's perspective and the public. From the city's perspective, as Council President Keppel noted, our neighbors to the east had an issue. That's what, working at two public entities, that's what keeps me up at night the most is particularly mid-sized to small-sized governments seem to be a target, mainly because of some of the older operating systems we have and the different pay, kind of soft areas, old operating systems. So the first question I have on the city side is I know at Metro Parks we have kind of like a ITS training where you go through and you learn phishing, spearing, social engineering, all those different things, and staff is required to take it. And then there's simulated attempts that have become more and more sophisticated where the department director gets, these people click the link, these people put their password in. And then there's triggering layers of accountability where you can go down to analog email, right? So that disable all links and emails. Because that's the risk, right? I mean, and the risk is tremendous, right? It's our water system, it's our sewer system, it's everything else. So could you kind of walk through kind of what, and I'm sure that keeps you up at night as well.
Yeah, the education piece is definitely very important. So last year we used our governmental training platform to push out some mandatory videos. We did not do the simulations, but some software that we currently subscribe to has campaigns that you can launch that will not only send out emails and alert us in IT if someone took the bait, but also has an education piece as well. So that's something I was planning on rolling out. So yeah, that's absolutely critical. I mean, it's not just the processes that we implement, such as, when I started with the city, every single user had full administrative rights on the computer. Those days are long gone. So, users can't install anything. They don't have any administrative rights whatsoever. But as you alluded to, there's multiple points of entry, whether it's on, website or email. So no protection mechanisms are perfect. So you have to do things in layers, and the education piece is an additional layer that's absolutely critical.
And then lastly, as you work with the finance department and our different enterprise funds and how we collect money, I would really encourage you to think about our customers' data. I know when we take payments sometimes for water bills or income tax bills, I think there's an option to like write down your credit card number on a form and then mail it to the city. That's not, from an information security standpoint, that probably isn't best practice. So hopefully we can get a payment platform where all that's hosted and encrypted, and so the city doesn't even touch those numbers, so there's less leakage there. So I hope we can do that as we think about that in the future.
I believe that has been mitigated.
Has it?
Yeah.
Okay.
That,
Yeah, for income tax, the new forms will not have that on there.
Great. Well, thank you, because it's one of those things where even just having a city worker handle that credit card payment, it'd be better to have an online platform that doesn't touch the cities. We don't hold credit card numbers. We don't hold confidential personal information. It's held in some
That's correct.
third-party server. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Sorry, there's a lot of questions. I appreciate everything you do.
Thank
Thank
you. Councilwoman Marks? Any Councilman Evans?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Director Coletta. So I had a chance to sit down with you, and like a few days later I went to Ohio Municipal League conference, and one of the sessions was on Cleveland's data breach in other cities. And for obvious reasons, they did not go into detail on what kind of security measures they take, but even so, it was painfully obvious that we're in much better hands here in Lakewood, just from the anecdotal things they were saying, and having just learned the great care the department takes to protect all of our systems and our information. So just wanted to thank you for that.
thank you.
Thank you. And I've got a few questions, and we're not far behind. I'm going to take the liberty of having this important conversation before a break for food that's here for everybody in the room. And if members of the public are watching, come join us for some Aladdin's dinner if it's not that cold outside. So we'll do that in about 5 minutes. But for Mr. Coletta, so a couple of questions. First, so looking at your budget, it's a flat number of positions on page 75 or thereabouts. So essentially, you're proposing, again, for the new year, a level number of personnel. There's some very modest increases in your expenditures, although actually it's a reduction in your budget, where I think materials and supplies are savings, and so is your professional services, a modest savings. So the fundamental question, there's been a theme here. We're talking about migration from traditional paper-based, and for the Housing and Building Department, it used to be triplicate paper-based operations to paperless. Do you have enough capacity to do that in an organization of our size with the number of different activities and services the city provides? We don't just do one thing in city government. We do many things. In fact, it's more than 24 by one count that I recall from a previous budget hearing. So with yourself and 3 other IT project managers, are we investing enough in terms of capacity, experience, expertise in everything that you're required to do?
Yes. I know it seems like a small number, but we're very busy. We frequently, work after hours, but I feel confident. We've been doing this for years. I will certainly speak up if I feel that we are in need of additional hands. Yeah, I feel good about the labor capacity. As far as technological capacity, there is tremendous capacity available to take on storage. We invested heavily a couple of years ago in a enterprise network attached storage. So the system is such that it's capable of being upgraded for additional capacity. So I appreciate the questions. Yeah, we actually, when I started, we had 7 employees, but there were 2 employees specifically to work on the descendant of the mainframe system, and it wasn't flexible enough to handle all the various needs of the department. So the project manager is a bit of a misnomer, because there's all sorts of other tasks other than projects. There's systems administration, help desk, but largely has become project-based, help desk by committee, and then strategic use of outside consultation.
Well, you're the electronic mechanic of City Hall, and not just making the widgets go and the thing work and turn on and reboot, but also some evaluation of how software is being used effectively or not, and then there's the whole security and training around security that we talked about. So that's why I wanted to ask the question, but I appreciate, and I don't recall, did you used to have only 2 project managers and we increased it? I think I do see that actually. So
Yeah.
in 2022, we had, we had an IT coordinator who then graduated, becoming a more senior position.
Correct.
Okay, but 5-10 years ago, did we have 3 total, and now we're at 4 total in your division? I just don't remember.
We had, no, we had 4 total.
Okay, all right. That answers that question. Could you refresh our memories? Does the capital budget include any investment in the public Wi-Fis at the park? And is the proposal to keep it the service level or to improve the service? I know that we've talked over the months about improving and extending the service.
So we did replace the access points in the 5 parks that we had originally installed the Wi-Fi in. We don't currently have plans to expand it. Part of the challenge was, extending the fiber to the various locations. So it's technologically doable, but there's substantial costs to get the fiber to the locations to do it. And
You're talking about additional parks beyond the 5 where we currently are?
correct.
Okay. Another way to expand would just be to put more powerful hubs in, so that the reach and the capacity increases. I'm beyond my technical expertise here, so I'm guessing.
I am not an expert on Wi-Fi technology. I think that, from my understanding, to boost it beyond the distances that we're talking about within a park, I'm not aware of that technology.
Okay. So it's a future discussion, but
Yeah.
so what you're saying is that in 2024 we've completed the update of the existing infrastructure so that the aging equipment is now new equipment, so it should function even and level. A variation on that question would be, and I'm going to put this in our budget document, how expensive would a mobile Wi-Fi equipment be for highly attended events such as the July 4 parade, a very, very busy day at the Lakewood pools, which we experience when there's so many people because we're successful at doing what we're trying to do as a community. We get the people out, and then nobody can get service because we're victims of our success. So the concept would be, could there be one or more mobile versions of that to, when needed, those several times per year? It's not all days, but we'd have that capacity, whether it's on Detroit Avenue, the Arts Festival, or somewhere else, to provide that additional service you know, the question, I guess, for council members is that a nice to have or is it a must have? I mean, 10 years ago, I would have said it's a nice to have. These days, it's almost kind of a must have because people find each other, they navigate, they find parking. I mean, we talked about potentially the parking deck is going to be, the new parking deck proposed in the Castle development is going to be AI portal served so that you can find your parking in kind of real time, and there's efficiencies there. I just think it's more and more, this is kind of the normal, and that's something to plan for is what I'm driving at. I don't know the costs.
Yeah, to your point, I'll just give you this anecdote. When we planned the original system back in 2015, 2016, the vendor we were working with asked about capacity. You know, what was the target capacity? If you think about Lakewood Park, July 4th, you can have 20,000 people in the park. To build the system to handle that capacity was astronomically expensive. So we ended up, I believe the expenditure was $150,000 to do the 5 parks. But after a couple thousand people, it starts to fall on its face and it just crumbles, does not have the horsepower.
Understood, and 20,000 would be the upper extreme limit, and maybe
Right.
that's something beyond the reasonable reach, but there's other tiers where a very busy day at the pool overwhelms the system. There's probably 1,000 people there, but not 20,000 people. So maybe, I don't need
Yeah.
to belabor the point today, but you see what I'm driving at.
I do, and I'm hoping that the improvements that we made this year will largely,
Meet that need.
yes.
Okay, well, we'll watch for it, and, okay, final teaser, I'll also put this in our budget questions document, and it's a teaser for later tonight, this evening, we're going to hear from the Finance Department. Tax software, I know that was mentioned by my colleague a moment ago, but designing tax software to successfully be able to accommodate municipal tax filing with more complex tax filers, something that is more complicated than 1040 easy. I don't think we currently have that ability, and could it be cost-effective and worthwhile for us to do that one way or the other? I don't know if that's an IT department, or that might actually be a Finance Department contractual services type question, but I thought I'd mention it. Because right now, the national tax packages, if you use TurboTax or some equivalent, it doesn't handle Lakewood. It will handle, what's the joint, RITA. I was going to say RICO, but that's not RICO, RITA. It'll handle RITA, but not our Lakewood taxes. You know, and the answer might be, it's too complicated and expensive. But on the other hand, if it's a solvable service, there could be a lot of benefits and efficiencies. So I just plant that seed. How about that? Do you have a 3-second answer?
I'll say, you know, right now, we're largely dependent on the software vendor that we
Okay.
have, and I know that there aren't many choices available to us. I want to say there's 2.
Okay.
And the vendors are rather small.
So the city's role would be to evaluate outside vendors, not to do some kind of internal coding, unless you can call back those 2 mainframe staff members and get the old punch cards. But then that would take up a lot of garage storage space, so. All right, I'll let it rest there unless somebody else has comment. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any concluding comments, Mr. Gilletta?
No.
Okay, okay.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right, so, council members, why don't we take a recess of 15 to 20 minutes to enjoy some refreshment, and then we'll reconvene, let's say 8:05. Sound good? Okay, thanks.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, yeah, please do so I don't forget to. Yeah. It's not only cold, but it's.
What a dichotomy.
Yeah.
He's out there relaxing, now he comes into
I
the.
know. But he knows his stuff so well. I just want him to give a really good example on the equalization. And we'll get to run through that. And then, yeah, we want to ask the question about the because if they're just moving from somewhere else in Lakewood, we have to pay on that? I think that's important too. Because there could be a good amount of them that do.
I would think at least half the residents are coming from.
I know he has a projection in there, like how many he thinks. I'm pretty sure how many are going to come over. He has a vacancy estimate, like percentage. Yeah, how many people are being.
Oh, I see, I see. Oh, I see. So he knows how many residents in Lakewood pay work elsewhere.
He's got something.
He's
Yeah,
got
'cause
something,
he
and
was
so he's
he
making.
was
Yeah.
estimating it, and again, it's all estimates.
Very
And that's,
interesting.
yeah.
We'll deal with it. But those don't.
But I'll let him know those
They don't
estimates.
exist. Yeah.
What he had seen before, those are just really estimates.
That doesn't exist. So the question is, can we create it?
No.
We should. So, okay, so if you know that.
Yeah. And again, he might be in hand, and it's not going to be easement, but I think everybody's agreed it's okay to keep that operation. At least on our end. Yeah, just shoot me an email and I'll call you in.
Will do.
Thanks.
Thanks.
about in 60 seconds or fewer, we're going to get underway? Okay. Oh, I don't, but it's somewhere in Alyssa. Okay, Director Byington, are we ready to roll? Okay, and thanks for the understanding for a break. I hope you made good use of our recess. So let's resume the Finance Committee hearing. Next up to bat is the Planning and Development Department, and we have Director Byington and Assistant Director Boss here, and along with the whole rest of the team. So please take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of council. Tonight I'll be providing an overview of the department, our core services, the 2024 initiatives and projects and accomplishments, and the goals for 2025. We have a great staff with a lot of experience, with a few planners, a programs manager, a development officer focusing on federally funded grants, and a newly created climate action and sustainability coordinator position that'll be focusing on implementing our climate action plan. The slide represents the positions in the department associated with the main duties. As you see, the department has 9 employees. The new position created in 2024 was the Climate Action and Sustainability Coordinator position. The next 2 slides list our core services and capital improvement projects. Some of our core services include the Planning Commission, Administration, Board of Zoning Appeals, Architectural Board of Review, Public Art and Advisory Board, and administration of the CDBG, home, and ESG funds. Most of the projects listed under the capital improvements were covered in the Public Works presentation. However, I'll briefly highlight a few. Our department is generally involved in the early planning stages of the capital improvement projects, but sometimes we are also involved in the implementation. This slide represents our major projects and initiatives in 2024. Which includes but is not limited to implementation of the active transportation and safe streets plans, public art, the zoning code refresh, and the downtown project. As you can see, our staff provides support and representation to many city and non-city boards and committees. Moving into planning and economic development. In 2024, our department advanced the downtown development project, completed the Winterhurst Ice Arena Ice Plant Replacement Project, initiated the Zoning Code Refresh Project, shepherded the Active Transportation and Safe Streets for All action plans through adoption, and advanced the Madison Park Master Plan through adoption as well. Additionally, we divested multiple city-owned properties, completed the transit feasibility study, continued to work with the county to advance the Lake Clifton Corridor Improvement Project, and continued the spectacular vernacular public art program. Also, we onboarded the sustainability coordinator position. Looking into 2025, our department plans to continue to advance the downtown development project through groundbreaking, complete the zoning code refresh, continue to implement the Winterhurst Capital Improvement Plan, make improvements to Merle Bunce, Niagara, and Webb Park, and continue implementation of the Madison Park Master Plan, focusing on completion of the Halsted Connector Path. This chart represents the applications processed over the last 10 years for Architectural Board of Review, the Board of Zoning Appeals, and Planning Commission. It does not represent the number of meetings associated with each application, as multiple meetings often occur. You can note that the number of ABR applications appears to have decreased. However, the guidelines have been streamlined, and this number does not include applications administratively reviewed or waived. Listed here are some of the projects that we've worked with Public Works on that Director Gordon shared during his budget presentation. Moving on to park improvements. The Madison Park Master Plan was adopted in May of this year. The plan included a needs assessment for the park and undertook a good deal of public input, including student involvement. which inform the plan as to the wants and needs of the community for park improvements to ultimately give a vision and recommendations. One of the projects from the plan is the Birdtown Connector. The city purchased and demolished the home at 2048 Halsted to provide an entrance from Halsted into the park, which will eventually adjoin to a new loop path. I believe Director Gordon touched on the next couple of slides, so I'll run over them pretty quickly. Myrtle Bunce is slated next year for a new playground set, swings, and a pad for the picnic table. Niagara Park is also scheduled for new playground equipment. Lakewood Skate Park, Phase 2. So during 2004 and 2005, the existing skate park was constructed at Lakewood Park. Due to budget limitations at the time, several elements were not completed. This Phase 2, which has begun, is intended to install those features. The focus of this project is the construction of a skate bowl element with additional features built along the western edge of the park, all to expand the features and space available to users, to increase the ability for riders of all ages and the ability to use the park via the new bowl. And there are just a couple slides that show the renderings of the improvements. Onto public art. $50,000 is set aside annually for the public art program. This year's spectacular vernacular project included asphalt art, which will be completed actually in early 2025, and wrapping of bus shelters, which is complete. This is you see here the asphalt art project. Students at Hayes Elementary, they were engaged to get their thoughts and ideas for the asphalt art. The purpose of the art is to slow traffic and to create a safer space for pedestrian crossing. The intersections included were Delaware, which will be included, are Delaware and Woodward, Delaware and Olive, and Delaware and Carabel. A total of 16 shelters were wrapped, 3 on Madison by artist Beth Keenan, 3 on West 117th by artist Joseph Richmond, and 10 on Detroit by artist Snack Break Studio. Other accomplishments not directly tied to art included the installation of the storybook trails in Madison Park and Kaufman Park in cooperation with the schools, as well as the farmers market pilot, which was very successful and will return in 2025. Moving on to sustainability. This has been led by our new employee, Jill Bartolotta, who is the Climate Action and Sustainability Coordinator. Climate Action Plan, in general, is a document to help the city identify where we as a community can be most effective in equitable addressing climate impacts. 2024 energy efficiency accomplishments include participating in ICLEI to develop a home retrofit pilot project, participating in a pilot decarbonization assessment audit, and utilizing NOPEC funds to purchase Lakewood Park LED lights, as well as an LED scoreboard for Winterhurst. Transportation accomplishments include participating in walking and biking audit, the walking and biking audit with Bike Lakewood, purchasing 2 e-bikes for the police department and an electric paint sprayer for Public Works. Those were all purchased with NOPEC funds. And also participating in a pilot electric vehicle assessment. Education and outreach accomplishments include educating 535 people at 13 events, providing a sustainability section in the monthly newsletter, water bill, and social media posts, developing a formal lesson plan on impacts of climate change to coastal areas like Lakewood, and providing information to city, community members, businesses, and industry to support carbon emissions reduction and sustainability goals. The sustainability goals for 2025 include expanding the tree giveaway event, creating extreme heat and cold management plans, creating a sustainable purchase plan, piloting a home retrofit project, piloting organics collection, updating the sustainability webpage, and drafting a balloon release ordinance, and then achieving various certifications on behalf of the city. The active transportation plan and Safe Streets for All plans were approved in April of 2024. The map shown here depicts recommendations from the plan, which include proposed infrastructure improvements like shared lanes and shared use paths. Administration and council have also been working together to prepare or draft an ordinance that would provide a policy on the implementation of the elements from the plan. City divested 8 properties in 2024 with 1 pending. They included vacant lots as well as homes. 2 properties on Madison were authorized through an ordinance to be marketed through a realtor for sale. We have an internal selection committee that scored proposals for these properties and conducted interviews. The first property is the Lother Center, which is plus or minus 8,000 square feet. We have a purchase agreement with Neighborhood Pediatrics. The sale price is $375,000. Relocation, this will allow for relocation of the pediatric offices, employee expansion, estimated new and retained payroll of $750,000, as well as renovation of the second floor for offices or small businesses. The second property is the vacant land, approximately 0.46 acres. Purchase option is pending with Barton Affordable Housing. The proposed sale price is $250,000. They are proposing 45 to 55 quality apartments for older individuals and relocation of Lakewood Alive's headquarters to the first floor. The project will utilize low-income housing tax credits, which will result in long-term affordability. Trinity Church, the city purchased property 6 years ago to prevent Trinity Church, the school, and retail structures from being torn down and replaced with a fast food restaurant. Scalish Construction won the adaptive reuse contract for the proposal, utilizing historic tax credits to restore, preserve, and repurpose the existing structures. Property was transferred in 2021. Barry Buick project. This project has been approved through all planning stages, and the demolition permits have been applied for. In summary, there will be construction on the north and south side of Detroit. Both buildings will be used for apartments, with the north building containing some retail on the first floor. Both buildings will consist of 4 stories, and there will be a total of 124 new residential units and 148 parking spaces. A few renderings of the elevations. And the downtown development, I won't go into great detail on, just as you guys have seen it, the public has seen it numerous times. As you know, it's through the planning process, and council, you'll be considering the final plan development, the development agreement, and the school compensation agreement on the 16th. That was just a site plan, which you all have seen, with total apartments of 298, 7 townhomes, and 588 total spaces between the garage and on-street parking, as well as the retail, approximately 25,000 square feet. A couple pictures from that plan. Housing and community development. Housing and community development accomplishments include issuing approximately $425,000 in CDBG funded loans and grants to low-income, low-mod homeowners and property owners with LMI tenants. Rehabilitation of 25 units of owner and rental housing, and administration of Lakewood's fair housing and ADA compliance programs. We also completed 9 lead-compliant paint program projects and issued more than $275,000 in storefront renovation grants to 15 small businesses, which leveraged an additional $500,000 in private investment. A few rehabilitation projects include 1472 Bell Avenue, which is just underway, and or will be shortly, in Nelson Court. Lastly, for the 2024 accomplishments, we provided approximately $445,000 in CDBG and ESG funds to support critical social service programs that served more than 7,000 low-income residents. Looking into 2025, we look to finish the rehabilitation and dispose of 1472 Bell Avenue, continue to market our affordable housing programs, complete up to 14 CDBG affordable housing projects, and up to 15 storefront renovation projects. Partner with Lakewood Community Services to provide emergency rent and utility assistance, utilize tax abatement to incentivize affordable units and support low-mod income homeowners and tenants by utilizing the funds on single and multifamily units. We'll also continue to partner with Lakewood Alive on housing outreach, the Paint Lakewood program, the Community Development Loan Assistance, the Knowing Your Home program, Lakewood Pride Fund, Bed Bug Support Program, rental support, small business support, maintenance of the available property database, and the sign grant program. To complete the presentation, Assistant Director Boss will be providing the Winterhurst budget presentation, and upon a completion of that, we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of council. Just quickly for the Winterhurst budget for this year, I'll run through just a couple of accomplishments and then what we have for us for 2025. So just first of the accomplishments was as part of the city's kind of taking the reins of the management of the facility. Our goals was to increase the number of learn to skate, play, and public skating opportunities. And so you can see a variety of the new services and programming that's been offered in the last year. In some cases, we have work to do. In other cases, we've exceeded our own expectations, especially with Learn to Skate and with the freestyle that supports the figure skating community here. In terms of information outreach on programming as well as the branding of the facility, we had the opportunity with the shutdown in April to really do a complete rebranding of the facility and really make it more of a outright, overt, community-based facility with the city front and center and return it back to the original kind of Winterhurst logo and branding. We've worked really hard to kind of forge and continue a relationship with the city school district on the information that's been pushed out. Just about any time there's new programming or opportunities that come up, I work with Mark Walters, and we get that information out through the schools has a very efficient, effective distribution system and emails that can target age groups and classrooms and grades. And so whether it's Learn to Skate, Try Hockey for Free, Winterhurst tryouts, we use the city's communications means as well as working through the schools to get that information out to the broadest audience as possible to continue to increase local home participation. And one of the most important things that I use almost every day, it is a continually improving website and transparency that you can go on the website, and that is a screenshot of, you can actually now see the rink schedule through Finley Connect. You can see exactly what's scheduled, when it is, on what rink, what time, what day. And I'd say before we brought in LCI and the city retook the rink, it was impossible to figure out what was scheduled at the rink. And so that's just an important piece as we continue to refine the kind of the public-facing part of the facility. I think you're aware of the ice plant replacement, significant initial step project. And just as we continue to peel back the layers of, almost 30 years of deferred maintenance and just the natural needs of a facility like this, this was a critical first step to get the system in there and really provide the mechanical backbone of the facility moving forward for the next 50, 60 years. One of the things that we're proud of is it used to use the grant funding in terms of the interior lighting, and we've continued to use NOPEC as much as possible. You can see the difference between December of 2023 and now at the recent Eds Arlington game 2 weeks ago. The old tube lighting was providing less than half of what USA Hockey requires for illumination standards at the rink level. And through the NOPEC-funded LED upgrade, we are now able to provide USA Hockey standard illumination at varying levels, as well as some of the new technology allows, like smart energy shut-off of lights when there's no motion on the rink for more than like 10 minutes. And so as we continue to strive to get more energy efficient and energy savings out of the facility, this was a huge step funded by NOPEC. And then the last accomplishment for this year is we have getting the locker room and the rink space renovation project, really that critical second phase, second and third year of the capital plan underway here with Rogers Incorporated. And so looking at 2025 and beyond, the three main things that we're focused on is that locker room and rink space project that will span from 2025 into 2026. to provide contemporary locker room facilities, an indoor training space so that kids aren't running on Lakewood Heights or in the parking lot anymore to warm up for figure skating or hockey competitions, as well as we are seeking additional grant funding to address ADA and accessibility in both the lobby as well as connecting to the rest of the facility, the stands, spectator stands, and some of the other issues that have been present since the facility was built. As part of that, in 2026, the second bullet there is we'll continue that necessary sustainment work, really focusing on the electrical and the HVAC and the roofing to complete our 3-year capital plan. And throughout the next few years in 2025 and beyond, we will continue to try to grow, learn to skate, play, and public skating opportunities, and just enhancing that coordination and marketing of the unique programming they will offer, like the Mini Monsters. It was highlighted at the Monsters game on Saturday. It's a unique program. We're working to try to hopefully use Winterhurst as a pilot or a beta to then spin that off to other rinks, just continue to grow the game and increase the usage at our facility. So I think that's all I have. Pending any questions, thank you.
Okay, does that conclude the presentation? Okay, thank you. A lot to cover. Why don't I start on this end of the dais? Councilwoman Striebeck, do you have any questions? And we could do 2 passes if
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. First of all, kudos to your department. I mean, did you do anything this year? I mean, what haven't you done? I mean,
The department's great.
When I started, when I start looking at all these things, it's super impressive. So thank you very much for what you do on behalf of the citizens in Lakewood. Could you touch a little bit on the farmers market that you mentioned, the pilot project, where that was? Because I don't remember seeing that advertised or where that happened. Was that in Madison Park?
It was in Madison, yeah. And it was, again, a pilot, so it was only maybe 2 months, 3 months, something like that. I can't recall, but it's next year going to be expanded and be a little longer.
Excellent. Thank you. And could you say a little bit more about the heat and cold management plans, what that would look like?
I can attempt to. So I asked Jill exactly what those were, and she gave me a brief answer. But basically, when there's extreme heat or extreme cold, like how would we react, or what would we provide to the residents to help out during those situations? So I don't know exactly what the plans look like, but that's the purpose of the plan, is to be able to help the residents during those extreme heat and extreme cold times.
And that seems like it would coincide with if we lose the power.
Yes.
And that whole issue with these progressively worsening storms that we're experiencing, and that seems like that would fall right into line with that. I think those are all the questions, Mr. Chair, that I have at this point. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Councilman Rader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Byington, how long have you been on the job now?
Just 6 months. I don't know,
6
July.
months. Well, I just want to acknowledge you got thrown in the deep end here, and I think you've done an outstanding job. And I want to thank you for your hard work. It's not an easy place to be in planning and development, and I mean, a lot of that is also, kudos to Assistant Director Boss and everyone else who always has stepped up to the plate.
Yes,
you've got a great team, but you've also done a great job. And none of this is a surprise, and that's a good thing, because we spend a lot of time on council, focusing on a lot of these issues, particularly when it comes to development and all the other programs you run. But I do want to go back quickly to the slide that related to the home fund rehab. That's what I wrote down. And particularly as it relates to multifamily, the multifamily rehabs. Can you expand a little bit on that? First off, those pictures look great. And sort of maybe this is a Director Boss question, but what are the sort of requirements of landlords, particularly who are making these upgrades, in terms of what rents they can charge? And what I'm getting at is just maybe a fear that if we make these upgrades, if we're helping subsidize these loans or give grants, that they'll then be incentivized to raise rates, which could, ultimately be. Hi, Mr. Wyman. How are you, sir? Maybe this is a Wyman question.
Yes, if you don't mind, Dan.
Go ahead.
Mr. Wyman, could you step up to the microphone for recording?
The Nelson Court project is a partnership with Eaton, which is a very well-established, large-scale developer of affordable housing, high volume. So they're our partner in developing these 2 4-unit buildings into 5-unit buildings. Home funds require that these units all be affordable to very low-income households long-term, so for 20 years. So they will also manage these buildings, so they are guaranteed to be affordable for at least 20 years to households that earned no more than 50% of the area median income, which is, I don't have the figures right in front of me, but it is very low-income households.
Yeah.
So there is an absolute guarantee that these units will be only available to those households.
It's great to hear. Is this, it says 10 units, is this like a pilot, or is this something that we're planning on continuing the next year? Or?
These are the restrictions that are on home funds. So this is how home funds can be used for these types of multi-unit projects.
It seems like a very cool tool that we have in our toolbox
Yes.
to create.
So alternatively, they can also be used for a single-family rehab like Bell.
Yeah.
So we also use them on occasion to do a significant or a full kind of a gut rehab of a single-family home. And similarly, that home must be sold to a home, in this case, at 80% or below. So 80% of the area median income, that household must be low to moderate income. So a little higher income, but it's also a home ownership opportunity, not a rental opportunity.
Great, and that's limited by the funds we have available in the year to do such things, essentially. And the participants, I mean, you need property owners to also participate.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in this case, the city owns the property, but
Yeah.
there are multi-unit home projects where we partner with landlords. There are similar restrictions on the landlords and similar affordability requirements.
Good. Well, I won't take any more of your time, Mr. Chair. Thank you, and looking forward to seeing what comes next year.
Thanks, Councilman Rader. Councilman Pardon me, Councilman Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Director Byington, Assistant Director Boss. A lot of exciting things. You guys really do a tremendous amount of work, and so the whole department deserves kudos, including you two. And it's really exciting to see, some of those projects, and it's hard to develop and fill community. So, Barry Buick, it was great to see Trinity get off the ground, and the vitality that's spinning off that project is really neat. The downtown development. Ironically, all 3 of those were in front of me when I was in Planning Commission a couple years ago. So it's nice to see them really come around. A couple things in the budget document that I'm curious about, and I was looking back. The transit feasibility study, so that was one of the 2024 accomplishments. I have some emails back in April, I think, where it was being finalized. Could you kind of share the results, or if it's finalized or not finalized, and if so, could you send it to council?
I'll let Dave take that one.
Yeah, we can send that out, Councilman. It was what you saw in April was basically the final version. It was just basically adding final to the report.
Yeah, I don't think, at least me, I didn't get I looked for an attachment version. I think you bullet pointed some stuff, but.
It was, just to be frank, it was one of those things in the changeover of directors that kind of got pushed way to the back burner. It was a study, I mean, for those who are not familiar with it, it was something that came out of the Community Health Needs Assessment a long time ago for us to take a look at. Everyone's generally familiar with the Lakewood connector and the old GCRTA system that came up through the Health Needs Assessment for us to take a look at. And it's not a recommendation, do it, don't do it. It was if you wanted to do something like this, let's look at all of the options that are out there that other municipalities or cities use, and what's the most, in terms of cost benefit analysis, what's the best option. So, but we can provide that to council so you can take a look at it.
Thank you. I'd love to take a look at it, and then, I guess after we look at it, I love a committee hearing about it. Depending on right now, you're kind of drinking out of a fire hose, but hopefully after the first year, things will open up a little bit. But I know there's lots of, I mean, I remember the community circulator as a kid. You know, you could hop on and go down Detroit for free, I think, or very low cost. Lastly, in some of the strategic 2025 and beyond, you say complete installation of Riverside bicycle infrastructure. Can you explain that? I think I know what you're talking about, but maybe I'm missing something.
Well, and I may defer this to Dave here in a minute, but I did ask Director Gordon about that because I really wasn't sure on that. I don't know that that's actually happening this year, and
Well, you have
that's why I
beyond
didn't
in
talk
there.
on it, and
Yeah.
if I didn't take it off the PowerPoint, I apologize. Dave, do you have any insight on that?
I think at this point, as we get kind of more into the details of implementation of active transportation, right now, we're really beholden in terms of what Public Works has programmed in terms of their street projects. And so the things that I have highlighted really for next year that we're starting to dive into is, you're probably aware that Public Works presented on the Northland project it's the next big water project. And so that is something that I've started to engage with Brian Shields on the engineering and implementing what is recommended in the active transportation plan, which does talk about the intersection of Northland and Madison. And since that project goes from Madison to Detroit, we're talking about implementing basically the same bump outs, ADA facilities on both the Madison and the Detroit intersection, as it only makes sense. The street mirrors itself with the flare outs. And so that's one. The Lake Clifton project is another one that comes in at the end of 2025. The Hawk signal on Madison is one that's finally going to implementation. And then there's a smaller project that was not called out in the active transportation, but it's just, as we start to review all of these projects with Public Works, there's a Cannon Alley project that we're looking at improving just common sense ADA measures in terms of ramps and alignment and signage and things. And, you know, for a very small kind of low density, low traffic area of Lakewood, but that's something else. And then we're going to look at the signal project for Madison as they look at the signal efficiency and programming, just like we did with Detroit. But now we have a whole series of intersections on Madison with recommendations for things like LPI and other things that we can probably address with that signal project, just to give you kind of food for thought on what we're looking at in the next year as we get more into implementation with this project. We've already started those conversations with Public Works, but it is really beholden to what they have teeped out for the year in terms of those projects.
Yeah, thank you. And I think on the Riverside one, I think, you know, and I do think there are opportunity for grant funding as you look out into the future, because there's a TLCI, there's a community, you know, a couple studies that really indicate some partnerships there. But that's all exciting on, you know, kind of how it's nice to hear that planning and development is working well with Public Works and kind of pushing forward a lot of those things, because, you know, as we talked about, we have those plans and we need to make sure to implement them, and that's important. So I appreciate it. I appreciate your work. Really looking forward to the zoning refresh moving forward, figuring out ways we can kind of bring that into the 21st century from the 1980s or 90s. So thank you.
Thank you. Council President Keppel.
Thank you. Thank you both for the great presentation and all of your tremendous work. I know this has been a lot of heavy lifting of late, even more so than usual, so we very much appreciate that. I have two questions. One is the bullet point about, on page 78, about leverage Lakewood Park waterfront access study to implement the pier project. I think we touched on that a little bit in the capital plan, but can you talk a little bit about what that means? It's in the, I'm sorry, budget book, page 78. It says, it's right above, so it just says leverage Lakewood Park waterfront access study to implement pier project.
So, and I can't speak much to this, but I'm not really sure exactly where the pier project is at this point. So I think that was probably in the budget, just to say that if you know, we would use that study, that plan to help
Long-term.
Long-term to
Yeah,
maybe
okay.
find money or something for the pier project.
Okay.
But I can't speak to the pier project.
Okay. I think I would have noticed in the capital plan if it was budgeted out for this year, but I just wanted to see if there was something happening there that wasn't. So, and then I wanted to ask about the professional services line item goes up by 733%.
I meant to mention it during the presentation. That is the zoning refresh project.
I see.
So it's a contract capped at 200, I believe. So that explains that increase.
Okay, great. And we know what the 5,383% increase is on the, in the hospital fund, so.
Yeah.
And then I think that's it on my questions. Thank you again, you guys, another small but mighty department that does a lot of work, so we really appreciate you.
Thank you. As a follow-on to Council President Keppel's questions, the peer project, if I last recall, was no longer a peer project. It was a enhanced access to the lake from the top of the park down to the boardwalk, which isn't a boardwalk, but the walkway. Is that accurate? Because I remember participating in public sessions where a couple different configurations that had different ways to enhance the walkways down, also increase, I think, ADA access, probably to increase the circularity of how you can walk and return, but none of those included a physical fishing pier. So just while we're on the subject, is that still current, the current?
To my knowledge, that is, yes.
Okay. Assistant Director Boss, do you recall anything differently, or can you add any color?
I don't. Just off where the whole conceptual work left off, I think you're correct in that.
Okay.
But I don't think there has been much movement since the end of that conceptual piece.
Okay.
To it.
Thank you. Okay, Councilwoman Marks?
Could we go back to the slide where the Eaton project and housing? First of all, I'd like to thank both of you for all the work that you do, and Director Byington for you getting your feet wet when there's a flood happening. So I appreciate all your hard work. And Director Boss, I just can't say enough about all the things that he's got his fingers in, and he's just remarkable, remarkable, remarkable. We're so lucky to have him, so thank you very much. This is for your benefit too, Councilman Rader. I know you're very interested in affordable housing, and if you haven't seen this project on Nelson Court, you should visit it. It's quite remarkable what they did, and I visited it when it was opened, and I was really very proud of the work. The only comment I could make is that Nelson Court is not identified on either side of the street, not on West 117th or on the other side, so it really does need a street sign. But they did a great job. I'm sure that the families that got to move into these units feel very proud to be living there. It was very, very nicely done. And I'm assuming that the second part of that Phase 2 project is right in the same area?
I believe so, Dan, is that correct?
Right next door to it. And I never even knew that was there, you know, and I've been in Lakewood since '85, so yeah, it's really kind of off the beaten path, but it's something we should feel very proud of, and I hope they could build more like that. So it's wonderful to have that in Lakewood, so thank you, Mr. Wyman, for doing the work you did to make that happen too. Appreciate that. So any of you council members that haven't seen it, I recommend that you do go see it, because we all talk about affordable housing and they made that happen. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Evans.
Thanks, Director Byington, Assistant Director Boss. I'll echo all my colleagues in saying thank you for all your hard work all year, but especially over the last couple months. I know it's been quite a bit on your plates. I think I see you more than, Dave, I see you more than I ever did before now. And we know each other from our children knowing each other. So, and I'm especially excited about the zoning refresh project. I agree with Councilman Baker. This is just a critical need for us. So I'm excited to see that going forward. So thanks for doing that. A question about, you said you're going to continue to pursue certifications, environmental and climate certifications. What kind of tangible benefits does the city see from obtaining those different certifications?
So I can't speak to the ones that are listed up there, but in general, I think that certifications help when you're looking for more grant dollars. I think it's good to show that. And what you have to do to get the certifications is what the city wants. We're making changes that are important to climate and sustainability, and that's the only way you can get the certification. So it's not only what you get after you get the certifications being possibly a leg up on a grant, but it's just getting to where the city should be getting. So, does that answer your question? You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. A couple of questions from me for the planning staff or planning leadership here. First, do you have dates for start dates? Well, dates for Barry Buick and Spitzer projects, both groundbreaking and ribbon cutting. I ask because those have been coming soon for a long time.
I don't have the specific dates. I just know that they had applied for the demolition permits, but I can let you know as soon as we know that. Do you have information?
Just for Barry Buick. The Spitzer project is still on hold.
So that's why that's a even more interesting answer. So can you give us hard dates that we'll hold you to?
I know that, as Director Byington said, that Newbrook Partners has submitted demolition plans that are currently being reviewed by the city engineer.
For Barry Buick.
For Barry Buick. And then they will follow on with their first preliminary set of construction documents for the building department. That they have plan review permits are open right now, and they're putting their documents in. So they're on the building department's timeline in terms of submitting all that information. They've submitted their preliminary CRA1 application with us for the affordability component of Barry Buick. And so we're reviewing that and waiting for those construction documents to be submitted, but they are in that. That's where they're at. Unfortunately, I don't have any hard dates or anything I can provide you in terms of when that process is going to be done. And they're going to.
Yeah, for those like me that are not familiar with the timelines of this kind of thing off the top of my head, it sounds as if we're months away, not weeks away. Is that fair to say? But we also hope not years away.
No, I think like a lot of construction projects, I think they're just waiting. They're getting all the administrative plan reviews done through the winter so they can start breaking ground in the spring. That's my understanding.
Okay.
But I don't know exactly when, but that's construction season generally starts in the spring, so.
Typically, if they're mobbing on site to do demo, they're going to start building. They wouldn't spend that money unless they were ready to go vertical.
Very good. I'm trying to find the right page here in the documents for, I turned the page in my, let's see, planning development is on page 76. Too many windows. Maybe the director of IT can figure out the windows problem. Okay, so, a couple points. So your level on staff count, and that's continuous with the new, actually, I think you had 8 last year, or for part of the year, now you're down to 7 because of a project specialist not being there.
No. Nope, yeah, so we had 8. Jill came on halfway through the year, which made 9. And so we still have 9 for 25, and halfway through 24, we had 9.
Okay, when I'm looking at page 81 of the budget, it says 7 and 7, even though.
I don't have that in front of me, but if.
Yeah, I
that would-
understand.
maybe
So, I
that's
mean, there
just
might be an adding,
incorrect.
but what are we missing? So we've got,
There's 2 in community development.
okay, so that, I have to go to also page.
So, yeah, we're just
85.
split.
Okay, now I see it. Okay, 7 plus 2, very good. And the funding, Council President Keppel got my question already on professional services increase. I did want to review, though, make sure we understand the hospital fund proposed expenditures on page 80 of the budget, which is 85 of the PDF. So what I recall being discussed as part of the proposal is a $5 million potential loan to the proposed development if it were to go through. What we see here, though, is contractual services for 5.4, other 58,000, professional services 100,000. Can you explain what those expenditures. So another 600, almost 50,000 above the $5 million loan. Can you explain what those expenditures are for? or
Yes,
envisioned?
so we've utilized this fund for maintenance of the, of properties that were purchased, or that were acquired through from the hospital when they left, as well as the community health center. So we're responsible for upkeep and renovations, and there's a lot of cost to that. And maybe I'm terming it wrong, community health center, is that correct?
You mean the clinic building across
Yeah,
the street?
Yeah, so we have ongoing maintenance and renovation of that property, and like I said, as well as other properties that we have been given or had to take on. as
Okay,
part
so
of
it's
the-
all former hospital-owned
Yes.
properties, including, for example, on a different slide, some of the 1- and 2-family homes on, I think chiefly Bell, but also some on Marlowe, maybe too, and St. Charles.
St. Charles.
Okay, so, and is professional services, is that property maintenance, or is that economic development analysis as part of the castle
And
development?
I'm not sure what has been used in the past usually, but to my understanding, it could be things like putting out an RF, like design for renovation, like putting scope of work together for renovation of a property that that we got during the process and we're going to sell.
Okay.
So numerous things we could use it for.
Any additional light that could the finance team shed on that?
Oh, so, yeah, so also some legal fees and things like that would get charged to that.
Or,
For the hospital site. Oh, and negotiating the development agreement, yes. Bricker
Yeah.
Graydon, yeah.
okay, so what I'm hearing is it's stewardship of the properties the city now owns that formerly were held by the Lakewood Hospital Association, primarily the large site, but also some of the other sites. It's not the, what's the building? It's not 1480 Bell. 1480 Bell is,
No.
okay, well, we can talk further, but that fully occupied property where the daycare center's on ground, the daycare,
That's the health center, isn't it? Yeah, that's what I was referring to as the community health center.
oh, okay.
Yeah, and like Director Mahoney said, there is a large chunk, and the mayor had said, in regard to lawyers' fees through Bricker Graydon for the large downtown project, and PMC for modeling the finances for that. So that's all that's coming out of the Lakewood Hospital
Out of the
Fund.
hospital fund. I guess my question then would be, the proceeds for that building, 1480 Bell, aren't those rents going into a property maintenance fund for that building?
I don't know that answer.
For the Bell property that we're renovating, it's not.
Not the single-family home, but the commercial building just north of,
Oh, those funds are kept separate.
okay. And so it sounds as if we're subsidizing the upkeep of that property with the Lakewood Hospital Fund. I guess all of this, firstly, I appreciate the answers because it's meaningful. Secondly, the concept I continue to talk about is that this could serve as a strategic economic development fund. Certainly, it is doing that for these formerly hospital-owned properties right in the heart of our downtown and the neighborhoods immediately nearby. Once we're through that phase, I do hope that the repayment of the $5 million loan is retained in an economic development investment fund of some kind, whether it's in the Lakewood Hospital Fund or we characterize it differently. But that's the
Yeah,
concept I'm trying to.
Accounting practices will require us to put those funds back into where they were spent out of. So they will stay in that Lakewood Hospital Fund. For future.
Okay, I appreciate the detail. I know I got into the weeds there. All right, and then, I do have one more question for the Division of Community Development. I don't know if Mr. Wyman wants to be involved in this answer, but could you help us understand, okay, my recollection is that we have in the division a series of funds that pay for a series of programs that have income qualifications or other criteria that are specific to a building. You know, a storefront renovation, dollars you have to qualify for, you have to comply with certain requirements. So how are we standing today in terms of capacity versus need? And I also seem to recall that some years will have a reserve of funds, and so we haven't proposed, for example, to allocate CDBG to replenish the funds because we think in that given year we have enough to accommodate the need. But those things fluctuate, and I guess I'd just love to hear a little bit about the trend lines and what our financial plans are for a coming year and beyond. Are we seeing an increase in need, or is it the opposite because sometimes we have difficulty meeting the income qualifications
I'd
to
say it's
make use of the
difficult
funds?
to gauge need. I think the need is, well, it's sort of infinite. So it's a matter of marketing the programs effectively, which I think we do, and then serving those who will apply, who qualify with regard to income, and also with regard to the program guidelines, which are, we want to address code violations, we want to address health and safety, and emergency situations, like if someone's furnace goes out and winter is coming. So are we able to address the number of income qualified folks that walk in the door and apply for needs that our programs address? I would say yes. The volume of projects and dollars that we invested in the community has been going up rather precipitously the last couple of years. I would say that our new programs manager, Marty Castelletti, has a lot to do with that. Not that our former programs manager, who was wonderful, Mary Lee, who retired a couple of years ago, she just was pulled in some different directions compliance-wise. Marty is sort of intensely focusing on just that, getting projects done, and I've kind of taken on more of the compliance role. So, with his focus being more on, getting projects initiated and completed, we've been able to invest more funding in projects on an annual basis. And so, but that doesn't mean we're running out of money. We have sufficient funds moving forward for those projects into '25 and beyond.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, I mentioned this because that's a component of our affordable housing toolbox, or at least retention of residents in affordable housing, one might argue. And so it sounds as if really the funding capacity is not approaching the full need, but the bottleneck is getting a qualified applicant successfully into the program.
That's traditionally been where the bottleneck
Okay.
has been. That's a apt characterization of the.
So in a theoretical world, if we could double the staffing and double the funds, I don't think we can do the latter, we could use the funds in.
That might be a tall order, but, maybe 1.5 times.
Okay.
Perhaps.
Okay,
But,
well, and I notice a lot of the departments have strategic planning kind of called out. I mean, if there's some action or policy that we could pursue to increment up, perhaps we should be, thinking of how to do that. I don't come here with solutions. I wanted to ask the question while we were here.
Yeah, I would, but to answer your initial question, yes, I would say we're sufficiently funded to meet the need that we're seeing for the near and medium term.
Okay. And I'm glad to hear of the emergency reserve that you have for, emergency repairs or replacements of furnaces, for example, and water heaters and the like. I know that's not new, but it's good to refresh our memory. Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Baker.
Yeah, one last thing came to mind, and Amanda Kramer's been updating me on the paint project on Delaware on the street. The one thing I would encourage, it being kicked back to next spring, is paint's great. Carcinite markers would stop cars, or at least make them think twice about driving into the paint. So I would make a friendly suggestion to at least look at whether or not you could do that to basically, edge off some little bit of the painting area to, if you have lots of crossing guards in each one of these intersections, to give them a little bit more freedom, but just a suggestion.
Thank you. So when you say edge off, you mean like a little physical
Yeah,
barrier around it? Like
so if you go down in the valley by the water treatment plant, the delineator between the all-purpose trail and the road is just like a plastic marker with a reflector on it.
Okay.
And it, if you're a car, you might not see the paint, but you'll see the carcinite marker with a reflective piece of tape on it.
We can talk to Public Works about that. I'm not sure what their thoughts would be or the cost, but we'll take that into consideration.
Yeah, or,
What
I
is that
mean,
word?
the higher cost,
Carcinite marker?
that's what the surveyors call them that. But, or planters, but those are way more expensive than carcinite markers. So just a thought.
Thank you.
I do want to compliment, I think it's a thoughtful proposal to have Delaware get some density of treatment that we're seeing on this slide. Now that, I think, is all in one section of Ward 2, and Delaware's a long road, but it's nice to see this. I know a lot of our public art work in years past, I can picture it on the bus shelters and on the commercial buildings, which is wonderful. But this is a nice new approach. So, and it seems like it's potentially a 2-for-1 as part of our active transportation safe streets. So thank you for that. Okay. We've kept you for quite some time. I don't know if there's any football games you can still enjoy. If that's what floats your boat.
Who won the Eds Arlington game? It's your alma mater, right?
It is, and we did. Arlington did.
Sorry.
Sorry. Yes, my son and I were sitting with the Golden Bear crowd. We won 4-1, so it was.
Love public schools beating private schools, so that's great, yeah.
Okay. We don't editorialize up here too much, but let the record show. Okay, so I think we're wrapped up on that. And then if we could, not to give you short shrift, but the law department and the finance department. So Mr. Law Director, you want to jump right in?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair, President Keppel, members of council. The law department, our work product is our advice and our judgment. So much of that judgment is based on our experience as lawyers. So I wish to just briefly go through the very lean staff we have at the law department and speak briefly about their experience, because that is the essence of what the service of the law department is. We start with the chief prosecutor, Ms. Miriam Miranda, whom presented to you, to this body, or the committee on the criminal marijuana statute ordinance in town. Ms. Miranda has been the chief prosecutor at the city for 5 years, but she has a total of 30 years of criminal practice experience. She's assisted by the assistant prosecutor and assistant law director, Andrew Fleck. Andy has been a lawyer and prosecutor with the city for 8 years. Prior to that, he was a police officer. So he brings that unique perspective to his job as the prosecution team works with our police officers to present cases. You heard from Judge Neff earlier today about the increased criminal caseload that she sees on her docket. And that's a good thing, because our prosecutors are working that caseload. They're assisted primarily by the legal assistant, Amy Antel, and Amy works diligently to help with discovery for the prosecutors. But their team works at the pretrial level and plea negotiations and the trial level to keep those cases proceeding efficiently before Judge Neff. Our prosecution team has the respect of Judge Neff, as you heard earlier today. They also have the respect of defense counsel throughout our city. On the civil side, a year and a half ago, the city retained or brought in as a part-time employee Mr. Jeff Crossman. He serves as assistant law director, currently has about 23 years of experience as an attorney, almost 20 of which were in real estate development. And you heard from Director Byington about all the important developments that are going on in the city right now, including a historic development in the downtown area. So that was an important hire for us, and it has allowed us to have the experience of somebody like Jeff, very well-versed in development. Finally, you all know Ms. Jen Swallow, the Chief Assistant Law Director. She's been a lawyer for almost 26 years, all of which has been served with the City of Lakewood. That's the team. It's a very experienced team, and since these are budget hearings, I'll say that my career was basically on the private side, in the private sector. Our lawyers at the city enjoy their work here, and I don't think they'd work anywhere else, but I'll tell you, if you couldn't replicate in the private sector the experience we have here in the Lakewood Law Department for remotely the budget that we have. So the city is very fortunate to have this experienced staff, and the city, in my opinion, is very well served. So thank you, and I'll take your questions.
Thank you. How about we start on this end once again? Councilman Evans. Okay. Councilwoman Marks. Council President Keppel.
Thank you, Director Vargo, and for all the assistance you provide us and your team. I just have a quick question. We show a 69% increase in professional services. I wondered if you could just tell us what that is. It's on page 60 of the.
Yeah. Director of Finance. Oh, sure. I'll pass that on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, to Councilwoman Keppel, next year we put in the budget some potential cost for hiring outside counsel for labor negotiations. We do go into those next year in the second half of the year. So just out of prudence, we have budgeted some of that for next year.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Councilman
Just
Rader.
real quick, since we're on that topic, was that the actual from 2022, that kind of bump in the professional services also due to labor? Is that the same sort of?
Mr. Chair, to Councilman Rader, yes,
Okay.
some of that. The professional services do and can be move up and down every year based on any type of legal actions that the law department's working on with outside counsel, whether it be with some personnel matters that they're going to hire outside counsel with, et cetera. So
So it's not out of the sort of realm of what we've sort of always done when it comes to times when we know that we're going to have a lot of hours dedicated towards specifics. There's nothing unusual about this set of negotiations is what I'm getting at.
Mr. Chairman, to Councilman Rader, yes, that's exactly
Okay.
correct.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Director Vargo and your department. I agree that's a very economical budget, particularly with salaries. Seeing, and you know what private firms pay for lawyers. The one thing I am curious about, if you've, and it's top of mind for me because we're going through it at work, we're thinking about contract management software as it relates to, portal, kind of review requests from different departments, having like form banks for different provisions, indemnification, insurance, risk provisions. And there's a lot of really nice products. We're, I think, going through a couple and likely going to select one soon. So it used to be that contract management was really hard to build, but now there's some like off the shelf products that you can use to kind of manage the contracts that come through your department that you review for other departments. Have you ever thought about kind of digging into something like that?
Thank you, Councilman. We've not thought about that. Open to all good ideas. So many of our contracts are specific to the department head who brings those to us. You start with planning. Those development agreements are different, unique, each one different. They're very complex, probably don't lend themselves to canned language very well. Then our engineer brings a lot of contracts too. So we have different department-specific agreements. And one challenge for any software with uniform provisions would be how they would interplay across departments, but certainly open to everything.
Yeah, perhaps we can talk offline. It's just that there are, I've been surprised in how far the industry has come in the last 5 to 6 years and what you can get and how it can streamline not only negotiation of terms, but execution and records retention. So, but we can talk offline a little bit. I think it could save some needless time that attorneys can spend towards doing legal work.
Sure, thank you.
Councilman Rader, any additional questions?
No, President Keppel asked pretty much what I was going to ask. Thank you.
Okay, Councilwoman Striebeck, no questions. All right, I've got one question that I don't know if was covered, or I hope I didn't miss this if it was asked. I believe we expect bargaining unit negotiations to begin again in 2025 for the contract to commence 26 through 28, but we have to work in 25 to begin to negotiate and then conclude, essentially, have an agreement that can be concluded by the end of the year. I hope Council President Keppel didn't already cover this. Is that part of professional services, or do we anticipate doing that? You did. Okay. You do, so are we going to do any of that work in-house, or is it going to be outsourced or a blend?
The budget, the budget allows for outside counsel to the extent necessary, but so much of it will be in-house. Yes, Ms. Swallow will work with the Director of HR, and I know the mayor works closely in those negotiations, and I'll oversee it as well. So there will be active in-house work on that, and we'll use outside counsel to the extent needed, and there are specific areas where it is very efficient to rely on outside counsel.
Okay. Do we know when we expect those to begin, those discussions?
In the fall, because the contract, I believe, is the first of the year. So the last 3 months or so of this year, negotiations will be active, or
Okay.
Next year, I'm sorry.
Understood. Okay, and do you think you have the proper capacity? I see Director of Law is listed as a part-time position currently. My impression would be that you're full-time, but you have a knack of being in the right place at the right time, or I know that that's an option for the law department leadership, so I'm just curious as to, has that been your practice the whole time, or part of the time?
I think, Chair, thank you. I think that that's been my title the full time. I work, I believe I'm here to be responsive to the various and many clients that we have. So I'm enjoying it. I put in the necessary time. I probably put in full time, but I am more than content. The mayor makes sure. She talks to me frequently about it, and this is my preference, and it's been great. Thank you, though, for that question.
Okay, thank you for your service. I think we may be getting a civic donation, is what I read between the lines, but we appreciate your community spirit in this. Okay, I don't have any other questions for the moment, but so we can excuse you or allow the spotlight to shift over one seat to the Finance Department Director Mahoney and team, Assistant Director Eddie and Assistant Directors Eddie and Schuster. Thanks for all the work that goes into this. Obviously, we rely upon your expertise and your financial prudence, and we take a great deal of interest. I know that you annually enjoy our questions, and you know that we are reading your document. So, Director Mahoney, please take it away.
Thanks, Chairman Bullock and the council. So I'm just going to go through very quick because, you know, you're best for last and I'm the quickest. So, yeah, just a little overview. We have 4 different sections of our department, the administration, tax, vitals, and utility billing. I have a great staff. I can't thank Keith and Jessica enough. They're amazing, and the rest of my department is amazing as well. So just a little, you know, as you know, income tax is collected in-house. You mentioned about a different software for income tax, and one of the issues is that there are only a couple software providers for income tax. With the threats continually of the state potentially taking over income tax collection, I'm not sure that motivates many vendors to improve their software. We have the software that is the better of the two, and it does provide what we need for the tax collection. For the net profits, they also have the opportunity to go on the Ohio Business Gateway and file that way. So there are other alternatives to that. Then, of course, property tax is collected by Cuyahoga County. I always do like to point out that the city only receives 21% of property tax payments, and the schools receive the most of it, which is 54%. And of course, Vital Statistics, their main role is to issue and reissue birth and then issue death certificates. So we have 7 employees in the administrative function. Very lean, and we have a great team. So no change in that for next year. Once again, the finance department received the GFOA certificate and also the audited or the certificate from the state for the award with distinction, which again only 3 to 5% of all Ohio governments receive that. Basically a clean audit plus. So one thing that will happen in 25 is that I guess I always say it's because we're so boring that the auditor of state let us go out for an independent accounting firm. That bidding process went through a couple months ago, and a firm was selected, so we will have an independent auditor for next year, which is UPCA.
How much does that cost the city annually, would you say?
We did increase a little budget, about $40,000.
Okay.
We also re-energized the audit committee, had a meeting with them about a month ago. So they will be working alongside with the audit this next year. The income tax department, and I also wanted to say, we are also transitioning in the finance department for Keith's eventual retirement here, unfortunately. And so Jessica has moved over to the finance. She's over here at City Hall now. And we have replaced her over in income tax with Samantha Nicastro, who used to be one of our, she used to work for us, went to a private accounting firm, and then decided we were way better and came back. And she's a real go-getter. She's just jumped right in, been great. They collect over 55% of general fund revenue. They audit over 30,000 tax returns, and with a staff of 6 full-time and 5 part-time. You think about $32 million and 11 people bringing that in, it's pretty good. These are the tax return numbers of the in-house tax returns filed. So you can see those numbers there just as a reference. And here's our history of income tax collection. In 22, we saw a nice increase, and 23, and I think we budgeted a 3% increase for 25. Here's the e-file data count, and you can see as it started in 2019, and it's been successful, keeps increasing each year. So. The other part of our staff is utility billing, and they are responsible for collecting over $31 million, and they send out over 14,000 bills per month. And again, with a staff of 4, pretty impressive. And then we have vital statistics. Over 4,500 birth certificates, 800 death certificates, and we're one of only 3 registrar locations in Cuyahoga County, Cleveland, Parma, and us. So when Cleveland is down, we see a large increase in our traffic, and that's with the staff of 2. So that's all I got. Any questions?
Thank you. Why don't we again start this direction? Councilman Evans, Councilwoman Marks, Council President Keppel.
Just thank you, and thank you for all 3 of you, your work on the budget and the whole team. I know it's a big lift, and we're always very proud to see those awards come through and get the clean audit and awards on the budget. So we all do a fabulous job, and we really appreciate you. And Keith, thank you for helping to transition Jessica and sticking around to help with Renee too in that transition. That institutional knowledge is critical, and we really appreciate it. So thank you. That's all.
Mr. Baker.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the Finance Department. I've always been super professional, and to Councilman Bullock's point, everyone does read this, so you can be thankful to know that it really is reviewed deeply. One of the things we talked about, Director Mahoney, when you came on, was the software we use for budget management. Have we considered, or, I mean, you kind of wanted to get into it and see it. Have we thought about, sounds like it's not budgeted for next year, but like kind of what a plan would be going forward?
Yes, and I'm sorry, I failed to mention that. But yeah, along with Director Coletta, he and I have been discussing the process. We'll go through an RFP process. And, I will need to include the utility billing people and the whole staff in the finance department. And we'll review vendors and make a selection definitely by the end of next year.
So then it would be for 26 implementation, you think?
Most likely, yes. Unless things go quicker, maybe a 26 start.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting. I know probably won't be, well, Keith, if you're still here, switching software will probably be very difficult to teach staff and, update kind of processes and stuff, but that stuff is necessary. Lastly, and this is not really related to your budget, but I wanted to talk about it before we go in next week. I mentioned earlier in the process on kind of we don't have any funds, or we're not predicting any of our receipts for cannabis sales, adult use in the city of Lakewood.
We are not. And actually, we just heard today that those are questionable. So we can't budget something we have no idea how much we're going to receive.
Yeah, and I understand that. The question would be is from a practical standpoint, those funds come in, where do they go?
They would go in the general fund.
And then so then they would be spent based upon whatever the approved budget is this year?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
A couple follow-on questions. I missed the vendor package or the software package we're talking about. What were you referring to?
We would have to go through an RFP process to select a vendor. Thankfully or unthankfully, this will be my 3rd time changing software vendors. So.
So is that a public-facing like billing portal or something, or what are we? Or it's an internal software package that you use?
No, it would be an external company, very familiar and experienced in governmental softwares. So it would be the thought would be a new utility billing and finance software package.
Okay, so it would. The primary purpose would be manage your billing and collections, but then it integrates effectively and efficiently for your needs to track it all.
Actually, the primary would be for the finance function, purchase orders, payables, things like that, and utility billing would be included in that.
Very good. And on the when might we first expect the first dollar of cannabis tax, I guess the state cannabis tax
It is,
to be arriving.
yeah, we're still unsure of when that, I have questions into the state, and it's questionable when we will receive those funds.
Okay, I think what I've heard from a number of colleagues is that there's interest in council of not just having those funds get absorbed into the general fund, but rather being strategic, taking advantage of new revenues and devoting them to a strategic purpose that then could be thoughtfully disposed of. And so the kinds of steps that come to my mind would be either setting that by policy somewhere in the budget book, and I don't have the revenue section open in front of me. I'm looking at the finance department's budget. But or we establish by resolution some other means of receiving and holding those funds until we have a thoughtful policy discussion about what we might do with those new revenues that are, historically we have, if I understand correctly, we've received $0.00 over the life of the city.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I could on that note.
Absolutely.
So if you recall, we did receive from the medical marijuana dispensaries, that $50,000 a year that went to the general fund. So it's anything over $50,000 would be new money, if you will, but that $50,000 does support our general fund and all of our staff functions. So just want to make that clarification.
Okay, thanks. I know that under medical marijuana, I believe that was a city-initiated basis for collecting those revenues. And so there's perhaps a technical distinction between that and state taxes, but I take your point, Mayor. But, the part of the policy rationale and promise by the state and by applicants for adult use dispensary licenses,
Sales tax.
which we didn't grant the license, but we had city authority over the zoning and permitting for those businesses. The policy rationale that we heard was, hey, there could be significant and meaningful new revenue.
We do not have any
Currently,
notion
right.
of how much
Right.
that money's going to be. And if council is concerned about, helping people with opioid addictions, please don't forget that we already have a funding source for that. It's from the pharmaceutical companies and all those lawsuits that we have been receiving funds that we have been using to help people with opioid addictions.
Okay, so are we saying that currently, Mayor and the administration, that your view is that we do not want to allocate those revenues to a different fund other than the general fund for general use? Or is that under evaluation pending more information we may learn?
Yeah, pending more information. Again, I have no idea how much money this is going to be or not.
Understood.
Downstate, they could change things.
Yeah, the state legislator has their eyes on this, so we need to pay attention to what's going on in Columbus.
Okay, thanks for that discussion. Councilman Rader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to pick on vital statistics, and I'm sorry. But I know it's kind of hard to when you have two employees because one little change can make the numbers, jump. But I did notice they had a pretty significant sort of percentage increase in salaries and benefits there. Maybe there's just an explanation how that happened.
We did change from one full-time, one part-time to two full-time.
Okay, so that would account for.
And that accounts for the extra increase now that we have had.
There it is. That's the explanation. Just had to ask, since it did look on paper to be a pretty big increase, but that makes perfect sense. And then the amount, I think it was just 10% increase maybe in the services for that department. Was it just the increase in the number of birth and death certificates that were issued the last year? Or
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
to Councilman Rader, that is our cost to the Cuyahoga County Board of Health. So that contract runs through the Vital Statistics Department because that was the forerunner of our health department, and that's the last basically
interesting.
department standing when we had a standalone health department.
So that's that number we see every so often, every year, every other year. Can't remember how often
Mr.
we do.
Chairman, to Councilman, yes.
Okay.
So the county puts that out every 2 years.
That's right.
So this is the second year of the contract that council voted on in 2023.
Got it. 7 years, I just learned that. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Councilwoman Strebe.
Thank you. If you could just give me a quick understanding explanation of the auditing process. When you say we're using an independent auditor this year, does the state usually do that? How does that usually work?
The state has right of first refusal, so they have been here 5 years, and then it's up to the state, based on their staffing levels, if they will continue to do our audit or if they will take you out for an independent accounting firm to do it.
And then when the state does it, do we also pay them $40,000 a year?
Yes.
It's the same cost? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple of additional comments and thoughts. First, I do want to compliment the income tax window employees. I've gone to the window, I don't know, every year for 12 years or something. On the last day. I may try to file online now. I've been a Schedule C filer for a long time, but now I might be able to do an easy. But they're always pleasant and efficient, and I always think it's kind of a peculiar thing to say, but it's good when it's pleasant to pay your taxes, and so they continue to be strong performers there and helpful. And then I see, I'm trying to understand the trends in tax returns filed at the front counters all tax years. Is there any fluctuation to make note of there on that slide? Are we seeing
The dollar value of timing
of dollars and numbers? Yeah, I mean, it looks as if
there was a legislative change that we could not send out delinquent letters until later in this year, so there's a timing difference this year.
that you just reminded me. What are the trends, maybe this is a follow-up conversation, in our delinquent taxes? I know for some years that was something we paid attention to and tracked, and we had forgiveness days, or what's the term? Amnesty windows, right. And I don't recall the upshot of that, how successful that was, but I know that's been a focus of the tax department to try to identify first, because we have significant rental population and there can be turnover, so people wouldn't always know moving out of state, hey, here's how I file my city taxes, I got to do it. And so I know that the investment in not being in RETA, this is now long ago, was made to increase our success rate. So how are those trends looking in the last few years post-COVID, let's say?
We do use the state tape. So if you file if you file a state income tax return, we can find you.
Okay, very good. All right. The only other question, I don't think I have anything else. So we, appreciate working with you, and I've updated live the budget questions document. Council members, maybe I'll conclude with that note. So the live notes document on SharePoint that we have been working on is up to date about 50%, thanks to Director Mahoney and her coordination work. So there's a lot of information there. Some of these get into evaluation, like heard us ask all throughout, how are things trending? Could we improve? These are, in some ways, kind of the graduate course on budgeting, but we've got it in there in the hope that that's A, City Council doing a thorough job, and B, we're together being thoughtful partners, anticipating where the work of government's going, where our city's going, how do we plan for the future, how do we maintain affordability for all of our residents. So it's new this year, so please read this, not just the budget binder. Okay. Any parting shots? I think we've talked long enough. We'll see you next week for a short version of this prior to committee of the whole. Thank you, everybody, for a successful budget hearing. Without objection, we're adjourned.